silence, please. Thank you. You have the agenda. Are there any comments, changes, or motion to approve?
Would like to suggest we add something to new business regarding what we learned at the FOIA training about public bodies.
So that would be after the review of the fire levy guidelines.
Sure.
Comes the new G.
No, we have four, right?
Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay.
If that change, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion
Second.
to approve and a second. All in favor say aye. We have the minutes, May 28th.
Perfect timing.
Perfect time.
Some of us would rather fight a fire than listen to me.
Yeah, I noticed. There was a bunch of equipment out when I was by. Second line, get this to you later. Second line on page 2, there's no I in page,
I'm sorry.
nothing. All
I
right.
was thinking of cousins.
Oh, you got the name page? Cool. Then the other thing, why I said it's good you're here, is I didn't understand what page 9 thing was. How to prove appropriate apparatus placement.
On page 9 on strategic.
Whatever that, I don't even understand that sentence.
That was the question that was asked. How do you prove that it's an appropriate placement of apparatus?
Oh, that was the issue about the distribution of the apparatus.
Right.
Okay. I understand it. Does everyone else understand it? All right.
Any other comments on the minutes? A lot of questions, no answers.
Well, there was one other takeaway I had that's not reflected here, or maybe I misunderstood it. When we really got into talking about the CIP, there was a lot of pushback about oversight of their investment. And I thought there was a statement basically made that 100% plus grant within the association was enough, and they didn't want to get into grants for the county for buying individual equipment and that approval process. Maybe I misunderstood it, but that's,
Basically, the companies go after the grants anyway.
but I was like, the companies are just going to be responsible for getting the equipment, is kind of what the takeaway. So we, as a board, county, you don't need to worry about it,
Right.
all right? Should that be stated there?
Yes.
Okay.
Follow that. Which one?
It's basically in this area, but it wasn't, it was the thing that the companies are going to, not just be responsible responsible for apparatus replacement without assistance from the county. Is that right? Is that a good way to say it?
Yes.
So I hear you have capital line.
Huh?
So we have capital line. I do have to ask that question. Capital expenditures. Specifically apparatus or capital?
We were definitely talking about apparatus, whether it included capital of like the buildings and stuff like that, I don't know.
Isn't that the second half of the paragraph at the top of page 2?
Yeah, it is, that's kind of the same, the part of that, but I mean, I just remember there being a definitive statement.
I thought there was too. I didn't.
Right, and so if there was a definitive statement, then the county doesn't need to worry about capital investment of whatever that is defined, then shouldn't we record that? That's my point.
Is JB writing over there?
Just, companies are responsible, how do you want it written?
Yeah, that's
Are
the,
the companies responsible for capital expenditures, apparatus expenditures, or they're responsible for the majority of capital or apparatus expenditures?
yeah, I mean, is it 100% or is it partial, is it?
Well, you're getting capital money, so we're not
Right.
100%,
So
so.
the majority is more applicable.
Well, what did you hear? What-
I think it was majority because we are getting,
Yeah, okay,
Was it recorded?
yeah, there was. You want to go back and look at the recording and get it that way?
Sure.
You have nothing else better to do.
so with the changes that we definitively made and the potential one change that we are going to review on the video, can we still approve the remainder of the minutes? With the caveat.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I have a motion and a second. Motion made by Paige, second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Harold couldn't be here tonight. He's on business travel in the strategic plan area. I don't think the plan came up. Anyway, he has, let's see, let me read this. Okay, in our strategic, I'll read it out. Our strategic plan says the association will appoint a committee in 2019 to recommend structure for adding paid staff to supplement the volunteers if and when needed. I plan to name the following individuals to serve on the committee for the association: Ann Speaker, J.B. Carter, and Todd Brown. I plan to ask the county administrator to name no more than 2 to represent the county on the committee. I plan to serve as chair. The section of the strategic plan covering this committee is presented below. So that's basically, he was working with other changes, but this was one of the biggies of appointing that committee. It's going to take some time to investigate structures in neighboring communities, figure out what they did right, what they did wrong, and what would they do if they had it to do over. So that's what I have from Harold on the strategic plan, and he expects to no later version, but it is continuing to evolve. It's draft notes
Yeah, okay.
and discussions regarding the notes and, you know, which way do you want to go type of thing. And he wanted to get this kicked off as well, because that's a big piece. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions on strategic?
Now, the two people are gonna be promoted or appointed by, yeah, appointed by the county administrator. Are those citizens?
That would very likely be citizens and county employees slash representatives.
Will the fire levy board have a, like, ex officio member on it or whatever?
As it stands right now, based on that, unless Gary wants to appoint a member from this board to do that.
I'm just asking the board, do you think we should have
Was
someone?
it JD, was it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, okay, all right. Done.
Anything else? All right, you want to get into bill submissions now? First thing I want to do is address the compilation sheet that JD assembles. We had some corrections to it. On, I believe, your copy, and just go down to the communications on the first page and jump over to company 9. Does yours say 2401? Okay.
Yeah.
And then 22,147 is a total underneath that?
Huh? The total for company 9?
Yes, under category A.
I had, what the version that was emailed out was 240188 for the total.
That's what I meant.
That's what I have, 2401.
Okay, so actually, the 40188 goes up in telephone,
Yeah.
and the total becomes 22,147.57.
Okay, what's the other number somewhere? Because there wasn't, I mean, there's only the, what made the difference?
Well, when you look up and you add it, it's up here.
Yeah, when you come, take it off of the
It's
actual
like if you
bill
look at
submission.
repairs and maintenance, it's $10,880. So,
Well, okay. Oh, I see, so the total,
Total is 22, whatever it is. Yeah, 22,147.57 versus, what is it, 15,000?
what was that number, 22 what?
22,147.57.
I mean, their detail,
Right.
she has it.
The detail
Yeah,
has it.
detail.
It just didn't get caught, didn't get caught in the compilation. Now, on page 2, JB, everybody has calls in Rappahannock and out-of-county calls with the exception of company 5.
What was the,
I wrote in what you put on your paper.
Well, I have the papers with me, and you can feel free to add them up, but I had 88 calls in Rappahannock County and 26 in Culpeper.
These are the numbers that were provided by the county, so.
you said 88 in what?
88 in county, 26.
26 out of county.
I was just looking at it. Where would you find that on Sandy's sheet?
It's not.
And there's proof.
Oh,
That's all the sheets that we're sending.
oh, it's those sheets, never mind,
And 22, how many out of county?
26.
26. 88, yeah.
it was,
None of that was reported in your sheet that you sent out to me. So
well, that's true, but you said it was from the county, so
that's the
that
county
sheet.
numbers.
the sheet that was sent out, we didn't get a copy of that until you sent out the email with the fire levy board documents.
What was Chester Gas changes? Categories.
It was in telephone,
Okay.
it was 240188, and then the total, all of Cat A was 22,147.57. 47.57.
147.
Yeah, and 57 cents.
Yeah, the total in the back for all of Company 9 was still correct. You had the total right, but that category A had 2 bad entries. Okay, we can start in with Washington, Company 1. And Frank, I'm always going to start with you and just go down and
I didn't have anything more.
Where's Washington?
each of them.
No, I have nothing.
Yeah, no, I didn't have.
I was only gonna make a couple of comments. I was gonna say congratulations, y'all had $7,650 in grants, through PATH or fire programs or Northern Piedmont. I think that's great. I don't know if other fire companies are doing that as well, but, you know, I noticed last year you had a lot in grants as well. And also this year you didn't have EMS problem with your equipment. So actually your first half of the year was $30,000, almost $31,000 less than last year. So you still have 66% of your budget left. That's one thing that I really like when I'm doing this, that people weren't doing this time. But I don't know if it's too much for a problem to do, but to put in what the annual allocation is for each fire department at the top, so we can kind of see where they are. But as far as your bills, everything looked great. It's all, no issues at all. Just wanted to say congrats on that, and good that you have a lot more money than you have any other things. No other questions?
Only question I had was on the training. And almost everyone's gonna get this question. How many people were involved? I mean, how many people did we train, or were they new?
Get to that, so I can refresh my memory on the numbers.
I'm sure your memory's better than mine.
I mean, okay, well, we have, as it says there, we have one person that was getting their intermediate, which will make them a medic. She has passed all of her testing. No, she hasn't taken the written yet.
She got things written yet.
Yeah, she's for the national written, but, you know, it's completed the class, passed her practicals, and it's running good. Then we had 3 people, and the third person's reimbursement isn't for until July or August. But they were new members, and all 3 of them took the EMT hybrid class out of Fauquier. They have all passed the class, and that just ended a week ago, last Saturday is when they were the finals for the class. All 3 of them passed. They now have to do their state practicals and national written exams, so those are scheduled.
Okay, so we got 3 new members that got
That,
trained, and 1 that's moving up in terms of their EMT certs,
correct.
right? That's the basic,
Yes.
that's as far, I'm not gonna remember all the other stuff. All right.
Oh, come on, let me give you more detail.
Because if you're looking at details, she could even put down their names. And then she put down
Oh,
a number
okay.
of books for the class for 3.
Pretty sensitive.
But they
Yeah.
were Lillard, Butler, and Atkins. Were they
Well,
broken down?
actually, no, because the 3 books were for the basic EMT, and so the third reimbursement you won't see until the next 6 months.
I was
They were-
really more interested in finding out new members versus
Yeah.
people
3 new
moving up the
members
training ladder,
and-
that's
yeah.
really,
Yeah.
Well, definitely because you have the lion's share of calls. You had 301 calls in the county. So, I mean, wow. Great.
And the other up there, the airway trainers, those were under that one grant.
I mean, when you're looking, I don't want to say it's not senti, but when you're looking at dollars spent and number of calls, y'all get a big store. Over time.
We tend to have more costs towards the end of the year, that's when we do a lot of our major apparatus maintenance. So the first half of the year, and historically tends to be light unless we have a catastrophe.
Yes. You all have historically been cheaper per call than anyone else. Not encouraging you to spend more. but-
I have to keep
A lot of,
Yes, you're right, not cheap. Cost less.
we get a
I'm
lot of our
sorry.
equipment and stuff through the grants though too. We do work on those.
All right, JB, any questions? Sperryville Fire Department, Company 2. Okay.
How's your new HVAC system working?
Considering the heat, it's working okay.
That's still
On your apparatus repair,
Yes,
you spend it seems like a majority of the money on one vehicle, right?
it's actually spread out over a couple of vehicles.
They older?
Yeah, they're older vehicles, but we try and, the way the invoices reflect is we had targeted work done on our rescue engine, targeted work on our truck, the tower truck,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
targeted truck on the brush units.
Okay. Yeah, it's just, okay.
Yeah, part of it, just so you know, we have companies come in and inspect, and if it doesn't pass the
Right.
inspection, of course,
Right.
you've got to do due diligence to
Right.
repair. So,
Absolutely. It's better paying now than paying later, right?
yes, well, we wanted to get down the road, but
Anything else, Pete?
No.
Kim?
Nothing in particular about the bills. Looks like you spend a little bit more this first half than last year, but you still have 55% of your budget. But calls at 69, is that up or down from last year?
74?
Well, I'm going in county, sorry.
Gotcha.
69 in county, you're at 74 total. Well, no, it's 69 total on here. It's 64 in county and 5, where did it change? Oh, 74, okay. But this year it's 69, so, well, how about Sperryville and getting new volunteers or?
Well, actually, I'm one of the people. So, if you look,
That's why they said.
And the Lions Den.
if you look down
That's
the,
why he's the treasurer. We got this great job.
get your officers to understand the budgets, it's a good thing. So I came in as an example, and we had another person come in. You'll see equipment costs for firefighters, fire gear, high, but no training costs. And some people would say, you know, how does that play out? I came in with, I think it's 23 certifications, fire and EMS. One of the other guys came in with a lot of certifications. The third person, as an example, we're trying to find him a class that sort of fits his schedule. He travels around the world and trying to get him into a class this time.
I didn't have any questions on it.
Thank you.
What's in order?
I had just, I was trying to answer her question about the numbers, and then I got sidetracked. Under personnel insurance,
Yes.
you have that mid-flight policy. I mean, I think that's the one where, huh? Air care.
Yeah.
So, do any of the other companies have it? All right. It just didn't stand out in the bills, or does it?
I'll come next time.
Huh?
Ours will show up next time.
Yeah, they may be getting billed different cycles.
Different cycles?
Yeah.
compressor, or generator, excuse me, generator maintenance calls?
One was an emergency call, generator would have shut off, we had a transformer blow. The company who was replacing electric lines at Mayhews crossed over something, blew the transformer. When the transformer blew, it blew out our transfer switch in our,
Been there, done that.
so they had an emergency repair for them to come turn the generator off so the power company could turn the power back on the building. We were running the generator for about 7 hours. And then the other one is, let's see,
Did Mayhews reimburse you for the diesel leak? Is that or the propane you used for the generator?
nope.
course not.
And Rappahannock Electric said that we would have to take it up with the contractor, not with them. And then the other one's batteries, battery replacement.
Okay. The 900 was battery
No,
replacement?
the 399 was
Oh.
battery
No,
replacement.
okay. All right.
The 915 was the emergency call on a Sunday.
Special. All right, I think, I looked this for, you had this records management, were you doing that just as a trial, or how's that going?
No, we did away with it.
All right, so this is the last bill on that?
Yes.
Didn't work out for you?
It didn't produce what it was promised to fulfill,
All right.
so.
On cell phones, the February bill is much larger than the others. What's the story behind that one?
That was phone replacements.
Okay.
We replaced our 2 ambulance phones with iPhones.
All right. And then in apparatus repair and supplies, I know what truck clause is, and the exact same number is in for traction kit. Is you bought 2 of them with different names, or is
Yes.
that 2?
Which number is it?
It's, what, 9? There's
No.
113.
Or bill number? Oh, sorry. What
What
line?
bill number? It's 113 and 108.
That's the truck clause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're looking at that, okay.
Have you ever seen those things? Those things are pretty cool.
No, I had a question, what are they?
Basically, it has a bar that goes across on the outside of your tire, and you do a ratchet strap that goes around it in between your wheel. You ratchet it down, and it just makes a thing to get you out of.
Oh,
I mean, you've seen what Polish rednecks do it with like a tree,
right, yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I need that, okay.
You really try not to laugh, aren't you, Gary?
Your minutes, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say I was offended.
So I'll tell you.
No, I'm serious. They were from the YouTube was from Poland. I wasn't-
Russian videos, there you go.
No other questions?
Yeah, I do, but he's still answering this one.
No.
Nope. Same bill. I have to take that one out. Yeah, because we only bought 2 sets. One's $74.95, or one's $209, one's $174.
Okay.
Duplicate bills, so I'll get her to remove that one.
So one of those is going away?
Yeah.
And then on technical maintenance, just you list the apparatus, but you don't really talk about what repairs were done. And this is the price you paid for Amosville being the first one I looked at.
That's all.
By the time I got to Washington, I was tired.
ambulance threes, semi-annual PM. So that's oil change, filters, fuel filter, brakes, and a safety check. And then 117 is preventive maintenance for attack 3. And same thing, oil change, brakes, brake checks, safety checks, and pump maintenance. And then 118 is PM on ambulance 3 Bravo. Repair and release batteries, fluids, fluid change, and brake inspection, safety inspection.
If we could, just in the future, just do a brief one like the one below, is
Right.
inspections.
Okay.
And last question.
Sure.
Under training, you got one item with the supplier was Costco. I didn't know Costco did training. Or is that a different Costco?
Let's see. Your training. What bill number was that?
Well, it's line, bill number is 167.
That's Costco dues, which would have been up in.
Yeah, I just say it could just be in the wrong category, is what I was thinking.
Yep, renewal notice for Costco, so
Should have been up in the other fees.
that needs to go in fees.
Yeah. That's all I had.
Okay. Glen Hill? JD doesn't know me, so.
No. No, I think you already had that.
All right, what are they? Fort Glen Hill, under supplies, I guess. Paint for the bay floors. That's pretty special paint for $3,900.
That's epoxy paint probably, isn't it?
It's epoxy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's expensive stuff.
That's really expensive.
That's just the paint too, right?
You have to buy it anymore.
Well, it's the prime, probably the primer too, right? The primer and the paint,
Correct.
prep.
And it's 2 parts. And you get,
I'm sure it's two
if
parts.
you want it waxed.
I just wondered, did that include like whole paint off and all that? Or just the paint itself costs $3,900?
Yeah, all the labor's coming in-house, so our guys are doing it.
Okay. So we do that.
Yeah, Brian, based on my experience with my garage, yeah, that was about the labor, the material cost. Because you got the acid to strip it, then you got the primer, then you got the actual epoxy on top.
It's all 2-part.
Yep.
Okay. That's all I had.
Fire supplies. Did you, replacement, old gear, replacing old gear, new gear for new people?
Jerry was, I know we bought a lot of gear. Is there a check number? I can look on it today.
No, but it says it, I guess it's a bill number, 11012, it's for $10,345.
All our gear is out of date, so we will replace it.
Yeah, that's fine. I just,
So what I was wondering too, and along those lines, when I was looking, this year for your first half of the year, you spent $11,654.90 more than last year, which the bulk of that is the fire equipment that you needed, which was $10,000 some dollars. So it only leaves you 30% for the last half of the year of your allocation. I was wondering, is there a way you can work on a grant for some of that equipment? You know, like Washington does, that would help you offset that? Because, it's kind of like we were talking about how when we were doing the 5-year plan, that, everything's one, and then all of a sudden you have a real bump because you have to replace this equipment that's outdated and it's mandated that it has to be done. So is there something you think that maybe a grant or that would help you offset some of that?
As far as I know, we just need somebody who has any familiarity
What they're
with
gonna,
it, who
there's another person, like, even Washington, you could reach out that could, like, help point you in the direction if you've never done anything like that, or PATH grant, or even the Great Give in May or something. But that's a huge expense. That's the only question I had for you too, was if there was something maybe somewhere you all could find some help to offset that, because I just kind of worried about the last half of the year if you only have 30%. I wanna-
We got a changeover in the number of officers.
And I wanted to say, I loved your contest you had in the
Oh.
county with the youth, you know? And you all got an award recently at a parade and stuff, so I follow you on Facebook. Lots of great things going on. Looks like you're getting some new people, so that's good.
Paige?
Yeah, under office supplies, that's a lot of, $679 is a lot of envelopes and stationery and brochures. Is it, I mean, I'll just say it. I'm wondering out loud, did we bury fundraising support in there? Because that's not allowed under fire levy.
No, I know we had some, we were sending out a mailer, and there was once again, if there's a check number, I can look and see what the detail is.
The bill number was 10964.
And that's in that period? I don't have it.
It says the date was, well, both of them are the same bill number, and the date was 1/30/19. Well, just in general, what mailings do you do other than fundraising that would drive something that big?
Yeah, no, that was, I think that was fundraising. It was a letter to the people that have donated before.
Is that a recruitment?
No.
I'm right that the guidance does not allow fundraising stuff, right?
It allows recruitment if you're
Recruitment, but not, right.
trying to recruit people.
I understood what your question was. Go.
So we always send out a card with our fundraising stuff, asking people to join or, what they can do. So we're still,
Oh, you do it together in the same card?
We do too. We send a letter out with an update. We ask people for volunteering. We also ask them to give money if they can't volunteer. So we only do one mailer a year, so we don't have the ability to send out more than one, so we try to hit everything at once. But the header was we need volunteers, because frankly, that's a bigger issue for us than money.
so we send out a card for them to send back.
Okay. I mean, should we modify the guidelines then to do that, or is that just gonna be an understanding?
Recommend modifying the guidelines?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
We have an agenda item to that and later, so maybe pencil that.
Okay,
in.
we do it then. Okay. That's all I have.
JB?
A couple of items under category D, it's not gonna change anything, but, under your EMS supplies, you've got MES SCBA repair. That should actually come under your header for, repair of equipment. And then you've got Robert's oxygen supply down under maintenance contracts, which probably should be up underneath your EMS supplies with the rest of your Robert's oxygen stuff. And the only one I have is, the next one I have is, the towing of brush 4 and the towing of engine 4. All of those are reimbursable by insurance. So we should have filed an insurance claim once we had the vehicles towed, because they'll reimburse you for that. We have towing for all of our vehicles under our insurance.
springs and fixing the leaf springs, is that the ambulance?
No, it wasn't. It was the brush truck.
More likely to break the leaf spring. I
Well,
was just curious.
Runs with water on it and everything
Yeah.
else, they just go around a whole lot quicker than we thought.
Yeah, I was just curious. You don't see leaf spring getting replaced all that often.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I know.
And one thing I will mention, that the way you did it made it a lot easier to read where you put any reimbursements you had right in here next to the thing, whatever it was. For example, the towing. Some other people, I think you did something like that, sort of on the side.
The grants represent.
The grants and stuff on the side. It makes it a lot easier than trying to, that doesn't add up, and trying to flip it back and forth. I don't know if we decided on any particular ways to do that, but it sure be nice to see it. And that's all I have.
How many, EMS training, how many?
Had three?
Were they all new?
Yes.
These guys are asking my questions.
Members for just over 6 months for the 3 new members. Two of them passed.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Kim?
Nope, I had just noted, what you've gotten the county grants on the computer and the towing and everything, everything looked in line with last week, so that's good.
Okay.
So I got to get 2 new doors.
That was a couple of times when the garage door didn't go all the way up and the truck went out. And replaced one panel and then the motor started giving out.
It's time to do it.
Yes.
All right, I think I only have one question left.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay.
June electricity bill, why the big jump?
That would have been, do you have a number for that on the left-hand side?
Bill number 7,
So it probably had to do with,
the garage door motor just running.
I couldn't tell you why it went up, but I have a bill for it if you want to look at it. It's,
Anything special happen that period?
No.
Didn't you think?
The only thing I can think of is we ended up having to have an air conditioner repaired and that
It was sucking more than
That'll do it.
it could have been running. We didn't know that it was bad, so.
So you explained it. Someone beat me to the garage door, someone beat me to the reimbursements. Let's see, someone beat me to the leaf springs. Someone beat me to the, how many? I've been beat. I'm done.
Okay. JB.
Good question.
Okay. Company 7, Maryville Rescue. Okay, Pete.
I don't have anything.
Kim?
I was just gonna ask one question. The refund that's pending for the EMS training, was that?
We'd answer that.
Oh. Sorry.
That's all right. It was for an EMT basic that wanted to go do advanced, so she signed up for the course and then we paid it. We did get agreement to them to refund, but it's one of those that's between periods.
I thought maybe you'd gotten a grant or something, okay. I didn't have any other questions, everything looked great.
Oh,
So why is that in the bill listing if you're gonna get reimbursed from the person?
There's a note in there that's saying reimbursement pending. It's what we
And
do
then
with
it-
other things where we're expecting some kind of a refund. We put the bill in and then we show a credit later when we get the refund.
And then they show their total request being less, the $2,000
Correct.
less than what their total expenses were at the top.
So the next bill submission will show a $2,000 decrease in your training minus.
Yeah.
But he's
it's
not
not-
requesting the
we didn't request
$2,000
it.
anyhow.
It's already pulled out of our request.
If you see it at the
Oh.
top, he took it out. He shows the amount and then put in his credit.
And my standard,
How many? So we had one, similar to Company One, who is going from an EMT basic to medic. She's completing her testing process now. We also, she was gonna go on and do paramedic, so we signed her up for anatomy class this summer. She's not doing that, but she is doing the class, so she's gonna do paramedic next year. Then we had 2 new EMTs that went through basic training. We're actually sharing them with Company One, but they started with us, so we're paying for it. And then we had,
so
that's
those, what, there's an overlap between those 3 and these 2?
No.
no,
It's total
we're
of 5,
paying
total
entirely.
5 for the county, right? Okay. Cool.
So, yeah.
And just some light humor. Tea and coffee, no one else did tea and coffee. Do we get crumpets at the snacks or what?
It keeps people like me awake so I can respond to calls.
That's it.
It's a good investment, given how much I get paid.
Great investment. Great return on your investment there.
Yeah, and we do also get grants to cover, a lot of us get, especially in the EMS side, get their state grants to cover a significant amount. Low Foundation often covers big capital costs. Northern Piedmont helped us. We've gotten rec grants. We bought an AED that we put in the corner store, in Sperryville. So, yeah, there are grants out there that are helping us to offset costs.
I know you mentioned that before, like when you were talking about when you're gonna go to buy your ambulance, that probably 50% of that will come through grants.
80% we're gonna ask for.
80%, all right.
And then we're gonna try to get a low foundation grant for the balance, but don't tell Company One, because they're asking for money too.
We're in competition.
I can't imagine that.
Does the association help share best practices grants among all the companies? To all the
Just
companies?
the opposite. Yeah. We try to torpedo each other's requests. No, I mean, the state has to figure out kind of how to balance needs. It's not really, we're not really in competition
No,
with each other, but.
The conversation earlier with Company 5 was they may not be aware of some of these grants, and what is the association doing to make sure all of our companies are aware of all the opportunities?
Good question. I do know that a lot of them get circulated, that we get notices all the time, especially the state grant, Rescue Fund, Rescue Assistance Fund, our SAF, Rescue Squad Assistance Fund. I've gotten 4 faxes, 3 letters. I mean, they really do publicize this stuff. REC.
Same on the fire side.
Same with the fire side. So, I think it's just having someone who's got the time and the capacity and the skill set to write proposals is really what's needed. I don't think it's lack of notice.
And
But,
that you,
Well, and transition
And
of personnel can
Yeah, because
be
they
a
have
big
new
issue.
leaders.
but I'm happy to raise with Harold the idea of having some moment in our meetings when we share grant opportunities.
Yeah, that would be cool. And congratulations for, not singling you out, but for Sperryville, where the rescue squad has come in the last few years. I mean, leaps and bounds from, say, 10 years ago. You all have really, I can date that back to around the time when my dad was so ill.
Yeah.
You all have really grown and done an excellent job there.
Yeah, people behind me, so.
Yeah, so worked really hard.
JB,
Um,
did I pass you over, JB?
No.
No.
Under apparatus, repairs and supplies, utility, accident, insurance claim, and an ambulance 7 body work. So,
Correct. So, utility 7 was damaged on scene by me. I backed into the patient's car just to make her day extra special. And we had an insurance claim, but we had the deductible, so the deductible is something that we had to pay.
the deductible's 1,200 or 1,000?
No, the deductible I think was that was 500. 500.
No, wait a minute. So if the claim, if you got reimbursed $658, but the accident cost you $1,200.
Didn't you
Right,
do,
it's $500 deductible.
didn't you do extra other ding repair while you were there?
Not that I recall.
Is the utility 7B? Oh, 7B is the ambulance.
7 Bravo is a separate accident. Harold and team were responding to a call down in direction of Culpeper, and somebody pulled out of the side street in front of the ambulance. Lights and siren going, apparently didn't see it. So,
Really?
I
In this area, someone doesn't see it? Oh, no.
so unfortunately, the ambulance
They were on
is
their cell phone.
2001 Ford F-350, so
No,
the
they
damage to
old
the
people.
ambulance was a lot less than the damage to the car that it hit. So, my understanding is what was put into here were our net costs, not the, obviously the insurance covered all the costs of the 7B repairs. There might have been some minor things that we had done that weren't covered by insurance. So, if you give me a bill number, I'm happy to look at it.
92 and 90 and 91. Because the lady that pulled up in front of you, she was charged with the accident, right?
That's correct.
So, should have been no cost to your department.
Right, so the reimbursement was the $658.56,
Yeah.
right?
That's,
For which accident?
That was for the utility.
And you had a $500 deductible,
That's correct.
so that's
So missing
$1158.
$758.56.
But for the ambulance 7B,
have you not gotten insurance?
Oh,
yet?
so when,
It's in the next cycle?
I'm sorry. When 7B was taken in, we did have them do some extra body work that was not part of this accident. 7B was not injured in the accident, it was 7 that was injured in the accident. 7B was body work done by the same company.
7B was,
It was the
two
upper
rocks
corner,
going, two rocks going up the lane up towards,
White
White
Rose
Ridge
Mountain
Road
Lane.
or White Rose Mountain.
Right. So
And it just took us straight right down.
that was not an insurance claim, that was just repair.
So the insurance
I'm
claim's not
sorry, I was
showing here at all.
confused.
if it was done on an audit, if it was done in the process of a call, it's an accident that
It was,
our
it
insurance
was
covers.
multiple small things all at once.
Okay.
So we had cumulative damage, and none of them was enough to take the unit out of service. But once we got 7 back from the repair from the accident, we sent 7 Bravo over, because we were actually really happy with the company's work. And they did that repair. Someone had hit a tree branch, damaged the upper thing, so we had 3 or 4 things taken care of at the same time, but none of them was any,
So it wasn't one specific incident, it
No,
was
sir.
cumulative.
exactly,
For what it's worth, this company in Luray, and they are really, really
super good. They did a
very
great job.
good, very reasonable.
What's the name?
I can get to it real quick, but.
This is Turner's Body Shop,
Yeah, Turner's Body Shop,
because Riverside did your utilities.
That's correct.
Mhm.
yeah, CB did the utility.
And it's pretty much what he estimated, is pretty much what the cost is.
Yeah, spot on.
So Turner Body Shop in Luray, huh?
Yes, sir.
That's all I got.
Thank you.
All right, Chester Gap.
Yeah, under professional fees,
I'm sorry.
it's all to no doubt accounting.
Yeah, yes it is.
Yeah. But.
You want a new accountant? You can have,
No, I don't need to count, I got one.
I'm offering, I'm just seeing.
I
if
will
we can-
tell her what you said. I was thinking the same thing.
That's right.
Oh, no, she knows.
Accounting services for Rappahannock.
Yeah.
Grant submission.
You like that?
Yeah, what is?
No. I'm sorry?
What is that?
Incompetence? Oh, you mean why is the bill so high?
Well, just what was it, the Rappahannock grant, what was it trying to do? Doing this? Oh,
That was 720. I was looking for, I
Oh,
was
wait,
gonna ask you.
oh, no,
What
I'm sorry.
grant did you get
The
for this?
720 wasn't for this. The 720 was for this, and then redo it, and then for what was next, and then redo it, and then after Todd helped him, then to get to this. That's why it was 720. That's another reason why we're getting rid of it, because they're just.
But that
Grant
says,
that
but
we
that
got.
says for a grant, and I I was looking to see what the grant amount
Yeah.
was that they worked on.
Grants, oh God, don't, yeah, just.
It's not
just
for a
ignore
grant,
what's
it's just for
writing.
this?
Yeah,
So,
So he's saying, well, we didn't,
No,
we
this
didn't
is
apply
for-
for a grant?
no, well, no, we apply for grants every year, but it wasn't, they don't do grants. They can
Oh.
really do accounting. I'm not gonna ask them to do grant writing.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I was like, how much did you get sent to
so,
write for it?
well, just to kind of make it clear, having worked, personally worked with that accounting firm to try to get them to be able to produce this document over the last 2 years, I've made 4 trips to Front Royal.
Plenty of melting pot lunches to
So
help
I
pay
guess,
for that too, so.
my question was going to be, there are expenses, but you're not asking for any, amount requested. There's no reimbursement from you're all zeros. So I was gonna say, wow, this is a company who spent $53,000 and doesn't want any money back from the county. There's 0 over there. Your request is nothing. So,
I didn't even notice that.
I noticed it when
Well,
it came in.
that's a good thing.
no, we were gonna
That's
say, so
a
you
good
don't want
thing.
it.
I was
So-
gonna get it out of
So we
there.
were gonna say, maybe, Flood Hill would like some, but you don't need
I
it
mean,
yet.
because I'm sorry to interrupt, but we brought this up last time, all right? I brought this up last time, about this accounting firm, and this, stuff is not in the right category.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
All right,
I-
and,
There's only so many times you can write head along. We were waiting for this to be produced and then fired them. Seriously, you will never see another bit of work from them ever again. We're not writing them
That's
anymore.
pretty
checks.
That was
impressive.
my
They didn't
next
want anything
Yeah, no, they're done. No, we've been trying to work with them for 3 years because we're caught in betwixt and between because we got an 80-year-old treasurer. Nobody else wanted to step in, and we were honestly getting to a point where we didn't want to have it be an issue with billing anymore. So trust me, by the next 6 months, you'll be looking at somebody else's, accounting firm getting a check from us. It's not going to be easy. Like I said, it was get through this, literally get this document, fire them, and find somebody else. So tomorrow, Todd and I are going to have a conversation. You're supposed to meet with somebody. If not, we've got somebody else in mind.
So then, I'm assuming that really what you're asking for is
Yes,
53,000,
yes,
1 point,
yes.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Column A into column B and we'll do it.
Right.
Okay.
Then I do have some questions.
Really? No.
Okay, no, go ahead, that's all I've got right now.
I saw it when he submitted it, and I didn't have the heart to call and say, but it just, I knew what they were going through.
Don't beat a dead horse, this does need some work.
Be gentle. Can't even get it out, huh? It's that bad.
No, it's not. So, you had to do with HVAC.
Yeah. We actually had 2 systems. One needed to get repaired and the other needed to get replaced.
Yeah. All right. Apparatus repair.
Yep.
That's, obviously you have probably more older vehicles than.
A 92 rescue and a 96 pumper. And we just did an assessment, Todd and I sat down and did an assessment. The rescue engine is in good enough condition that actually you're gonna see a hit on this next time for body work, because it's a solid piece of equipment. It's rusting, so we're gonna have body work done on it. Goal is to keep that for another 3 to 4 years and then look to replace it. The engine we just got, so. But anyway.
That's a custom chassis and the cab around the bottom
Right.
is just rusting out.
Yeah.
They can cut it out and replace it.
Yep.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, and, yeah, I was lost on your communications here.
Which part?
Well, I'm just wondering, because there's cell phones up in the upper
Yeah.
part, and there's cell phones with the,
Right.
and I know one of the recommendations is to put off communications altogether. So
Right.
that will solve that problem. I just wondered, you seem to have more communications expenses than the other people, and
have tablets in every vehicle.
Yeah.
We just push them in there to get GPS, and it's great, because we got iron responding on it, you hit it, and the map comes right up, regardless of whether you know where it is or not, so we put tablets in every vehicle. So there is some expense for that, we added 3 more, I think, this term. I think we replaced 1 telephone this term too, but yeah, that's why you're seeing so many. The bills, really, it's just 1 a month, but yeah, we got some additions as we're over that same time period, so.
So part of this was upgrade,
Yeah, part of it's upgrade, part of it's addition.
so it just kind of happened all at once.
Yeah,
And the tablets are self-connected.
yeah, and we did a code difference.
No, it's AT&T, I think.
AT&T,
It's
yeah.
AT&T.
Yeah, and actually, there's a program, we're supposed to get some information, it should hopefully show up in the next period, where for first responders, you get a discount and better coverage.
Right.
For this county. So we'll have more, you should see an alteration to the numbers and to the,
Who's got that, who's got first responder?
it's first net or first.
AT&T
First,
first.
yeah, first,
AT&T,
yeah, it's first net or something.
It only works if you got AT&T towers, doesn't roam.
No, it does, what it does is it pulls off of any tower. That's why we're looking at getting it, because it pulls from any tower. It'll borrow from Sprint or Verizon or whoever. So that's,
I think you might have some, I'm pretty sure
No.
somebody's telling you the wrong thing.
that's what we're told by,
Well,
look, I can only tell you what I was told.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things with him having is the tablets, and I believe I'm correct, JB and Gary, you can chime in, but on the new system that's going in place into dispatch, the CAD system, will have mapping on it that you can have a tablet in one of the pieces and pull up the map spread off the system. We actually started a demo yesterday morning with Sandy Carter showing us a demo of it, but we all got toned out calls, so we left. Never, couldn't get back.
But apparently it's a Windows-based program, so it won't run on our iPads.
Really? Yeah.
Nice.
That's it.
Even if there was an adapter for it, it still wouldn't run right.
Right.
Well, that's probably the only question.
Yeah.
Okay. Kim?
I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
So under cleaning and maintenance,
Yes.
I see that you use Centos, and it's usually around 210.49, which seems about right. But then down here on June the 11th,
Give me a bill number, please.
there, looks like it's 46.
Yeah,
Rugs, cleaning supplies,
T-shirts,
t-shirts
sweatshirts.
and sweatshirts,
Yeah.
$2,617.
Yeah, they get their,
yeah, we get all, the t-shirt I'm wearing came from
right.
Cintas. So we order our t-shirts and sweatshirts, we get to the members.
I was just thinking, if your normal bill's $210,
Yeah.
that means you paid around $2,400 for
Um,
t-shirts and sweatshirts?
No, it's not normally, I can't
It
tell you
says
exactly what.
210, well, if I
Let me
look,
see if I can take a look at the bill and see what it says, but t-shirts usually around 5 or 6.
yeah, because like, if you look on your bills, like on 3/22, it was $210.49, 4/12, it was $210.39, 5/14, it was $510.
All right.
Just seemed like it had a rather expensive t-shirts and
Great.
sweatshirts.
Yeah, it doesn't have a breakup for me, all it says is t-shirts and sweatshirts.
Okay.
Now, what I can tell you is, we did miss a year, but I don't think that we'd ordered that many more. I can't tell you exactly, we'd have to talk to Tom to know exactly.
Kind of interesting.
Your bill number 46, that needs to be broken out into a different
Yeah, I know.
category under your.
That goes with
Yeah,
that.
because it's
Technical
not like
equipment.
cleaning and maintenance, right?
Right.
T-shirts and
Needs to
sweatshirts.
go under-
T-shirts, I know.
Well, AC repair should not be under that either, it should be under,
Holdings and maintenance.
Yeah, so the
I mean, I
AC,
could go on and on and on.
Dude,
so the AC,
and if you want to come with this day, then and just find out how fun it is to beat your head, I please invite you to come along.
I work for the federal government, I learned how to beat my head very well.
so the
Then maybe,
AC,
Yeah, I'm good to go. There are no nerves left.
All right. Go
Okay.
ahead, Kim.
so the AC repair was kind of interesting because on 5/13, you paid, to Vernon Smith,
Yeah.
$510 for AC repair.
Yeah, that was a repair.
And
then
then
it was,
on 528, you had
Yes.
two replaced, there was
Right.
2 units, you paid $3,200 and $2,040 to
those,
them.
that's, one was a, I believe there's two bills.
Yeah, you've got it in here, I mean, you paid him 510, and
the-
then you paid him
Well, that could have been just the
5,000.
day that the checks were cut. It doesn't, or at least the day the checks were
That
recorded.
total sounds like it'd be right for the condenser and the.
Yeah, it was a replacement of the entire unit,
So it's just one unit that was
It's just one
5,000?
unit, yeah, we got, the first one, that 500 is a repair to one unit, and then the total for the 5,000 was the other unit.
You have more than one unit.
But why it's broken out, oh, yeah, just. we
Right.
gotta
So it
have
was just
certain-
So
broken
it's
out
one
into those
zone,
two.
one zone had to be repaired, the other zone had to be
Right,
replaced.
exactly, right, so why, I'm just curious.
So
I'm
5,000
just
should
curious
be
why
for one unit, not
Right.
2 different bills there?
No,
And
no,
the other
no,
one's
no.
5, okay.
Unless he billed for the air handler and billed for the compressor.
Could have.
He gave us one invoice, I have no idea, well, one was a deposit, one was a payment. So, yeah, I don't know why we're,
And then you probably just,
$5,000.
yeah, why it was,
Payments.
yeah, it was 5,000, why they gave it out as 2 checks, I have no idea. It's on one, it's only on one invoice, so why it's 2 checks, I
You cut
can't.
both checks, held one, and didn't give it to him until he finished the job. They both got on the same day.
Maybe.
okay, and then the other thing was just the question of like $600 to do your 218 tax prep, couldn't be but so much, and $720
Yeah.
for your Rappahannock grant submission, which we kind of
Yeah.
talked about. I wondered how much money you got for your grant, because it wasn't listed on here.
Well, that-
And,
We usually do well on grants. This year, we didn't get anything, but they didn't do anything with grants. Actually, you know what, I think they're,
Should've got a computer.
well, well, to me, a couple $1,000 isn't great. We usually get anywhere between 40 and 50, so if we get
Wow.
less than that, it's, they're, yeah, I have no idea why it's grant submission.
So then the question would be like, just how much for the t-shirts and sweatshirts? And then I noticed you bought 2 chairs.
Yeah.
It says chair for the day room, and one was
Yeah, why it's-
$379 and one was $15. Oh, that was it.
Right, yeah, one was,
One must have been lazy boy, and the other was plastic.
no, essentially, yeah, I mean, one was a yard sale special, and the other one wasn't.
I don't have anything else.
Go for it, Lennon.
I didn't know where to start. So
You,
the,
you and me both, brother, you and me both.
so, I really don't, except for the accountant lines, all right?
Mhm.
I really don't have issues with the amounts, because I could figure out what they were, all right?
Okay,
My problem is that this, I was about to make a joke with Todd, that he does this on purpose, all right?
see how awake you are?
Yeah, to see if I'm awake. But we've got so many things that aren't even in the right category by the
I know.
guidance. And it just is,
I know.
you know,
And it almost doesn't seem to matter how many conversations we
I guess my comment is, at this point, it would be worth my time to sit down and help someone
I know.
do this, okay? I would volunteer to help do that, rather than the time I have to spend trying to understand
Right.
it, all right?
Well, that's,
You know, period after period
Yeah.
after period. So, there's an offer.
yeah,
right?
no, well, like I said,
If
the
it's
next person,
picking out an accounting firm, or helping train someone that wants to be an accountant,
well, that's what I
whatever,
say,
I'm willing to help.
I've been pushing for a year and a half for us to change accountants. And
I think you're down that path, I think that's
I'm
what
just the
you're doing.
president. I mean, there's only so much I can do, and it's up to Todd and the treasurer to make the decision to finally cross that bridge. And I think they finally had enough pain where the bridge has been
I
crossed.
think they're there.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no, they're there. They're
Right.
there. The question isn't if they're there, the question is who we're gonna get after them, because it sure as hell isn't gonna be done. So,
All right.
I don't want them doing my taxes.
I wouldn't
I
want
know, I
him writing a
would
check for the,
You go to jail.
yeah, no, I wouldn't want him writing a check for the gardener, much less this. They don't get it,
So,
accounting.
well, my recommendation is you need to have a member of skin in the game.
Oh, yeah, no.
That's your real problem, I think, that's the root of the problem. You can have an accountant to help move it, but you need to have
Right.
something other than an 80-year-old treasurer that.
Oh, no, I know. No,
Right.
we've got somebody else we're looking at.
Okay,
who up on the
so
mountain that are
I
looking
think
at-
that's a root issue, all right? So,
Yep.
please do something, which, and I'll leave the rest of that comment till when we get to the guidance, all right? But,
There's nothing wrong with being 80, I don't think that's the issue.
Well,
There's some of us that are 80 that can still do this stuff.
But we
don't have to just recruit firefighters and EMTs.
No,
We
no.
can recruit accountants.
associate, no, we're.
As
there's-
associates or
no, that's-
auxiliary
that's
or
it.
whatever.
The people we're looking to bring in are,
It's
one
painful
of
to
them,
pay a bill to pay somebody to do the book.
there's a lady at the mountain who, she hasn't joined yet because she thought she had to be a member and like go on calls, and I'm, oh, you can join as an associate, and fill out a check. And so, and that's why I say, I've been
And
pushing
it's
for
skin
this
in
for.
the game, as you're
yeah.
saying. Yeah.
I've been pushing this for over a year, so like I said, I think we kind of got some headwind with this because he said it, not me, Todd. This is the last straw. We just got to get this done, get this behind us, because it really came to a head with this. This was just as bad as usual, and this is good.
So, bottom,
That's what I'm trying to say. This is
as,
good. You guys don't get this. This is the
We
good.
should go back and tell Todd that we approved it the way they wrote it. You didn't get the 53,000, you got
there you
zero.
go, stealing my line again, I'm gonna say no, don't pay it.
Well, I was saying,
that's-
you're gonna
seriously.
get zero for the 53, because that's what you submitted. And Plant Hill said they'd love to have some.
Right.
Thanks.
Well, the only thing I walk out of this with is at least I now made everybody else feel better about what they did.
And ours cost zero.
We had paid for this. That's what I'm trying to say. We paid for this.
I know.
I'll stop by your station.
All right.
No, but on a serious note,
Yeah, Mike?
Yeah.
on a serious note, is the board gonna pay these accounting bills? All of them, part of them, or none of them? What's our recommendation?
I mean, it's an expense that they have incurred with the attempt to produce a report based on a treasurer who really didn't want to do the job, but was willing to go and carry deposits or carry bills down to the accountant. And the accountant wasn't working out. Probably should have cut ties a long time ago, but it's an expense that they incurred. You can't just reject the expense because it was a bad account.
Well, yeah, I think we can.
What does the authority, for lack of a better word, of the fire levy board in the process is to identify appropriate operational expenses, which when put all together, forms the future year budget. So it's not whether you're gonna pay this or not.
You're right.
It's whether this
Right.
is an appropriate number to forecast what the budget needs to be.
Right.
So it may take some heat off of whether 1,700 needs to be paid. 17 is going to be paid because it's their contract with the guy.
Right.
But is that the number that informs future need?
You explained that a lot better than the way I was thinking it. So the point is, does this go into their budget number?
If they got a member to do the same job, then that number goes to zero in the next 6 months.
Okay, let me try this. Be really, really, really blunt, all right? If we don't put it in the budget, do we not force them to go that direction?
Well, that to me seems like a slippery slope we want to go down, because then we could go down everybody's line items.
Yeah,
Start parsing it, start parsing out. Look, I appreciate that you're upset about the fact that it looks like we wasted $1,700 here. But I dare you then to look at anybody else's expense reports then and not be able to do the same thing, go line by line by line and challenge every single one and say, well, couldn't we then micromanage every single station in this county? And unless you're gonna go down the micromanagement line and be willing to do that on every single company, about every single thing they spend their money on, now you and I have a problem. Because this was a best effort to get you guys the numbers you need to justify our budget. Now you wanna start getting like this, well, let's go, because there's a conversation you and I need to have.
I think that companies spend money in good things. And obviously, one would hope if they spent some money that they found was, that they found that they were spending more money than they should, that they would make amends to change that. And the thing of it is, they need to understand that this comes out of their 100%, so that you have to find some way to make that up the
Right.
next go-around. So
Right.
it's a learning process, and yeah, I don't want to get into micromanaging your budget. I mean, you're big people and everything else like that. You've got to understand that you've got X amount of dollars to live with.
Right.
You've got to live within the dollars. You make a
Right.
mistake, well, you gotta find some way
To learn and move up.
to learn and move on and
Right.
make up the next thing. I mean,
Yeah.
you shouldn't come in and say, okay, my budget's $100,000 for the year, and you come and ask for $102,000, because you're gonna go, because I made a mistake and I spent $1,700 on
Right.
an accountant that, you know, turned out to be not so hot. So I'm sorry that happened, and hopefully, you know, you learn, you
Like I
learn the
said-
lesson, and, and move on, and move out smartly, and that's it,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, no, trust me, if we had an option,
Yeah.
we'd have exercised it.
There's a process with the IRS tax form 990
Yeah.
that's just simply too much for a general treasurer to complete. So we all pay out to do that.
Amosville's never filled it out. We fill ours out every year.
Really?
I don't understand where the problem is. Everything is in your
Membership.
QuickBooks.
Membership's the
Yeah.
problem.
We've only
Yeah,
paid out the last 2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
Prior to that, we had somebody that volunteered to do it,
It was capable
But
of
it-
doing it.
but it was still arduous, you know.
Yeah.
A 990, trust me, I'm a treasurer of a nonprofit, and I've been a CFO of a nonprofit. 990s are a pain in the
Tail.
tail. And so I understand that completely. And we're fortunate that we have a volunteer in our group who's an accountant who can do a 990, standing on her head. But a 990 is a very important document.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's probably
So you
going to
get
cost
that.
you some money to do that.
If you're using
I
QuickBooks,
think it
though,
cost
QuickBooks
us-
helps you
Yes,
do
if
your
you have
990.
QuickBooks,
That was
you can do the 990 right up.
Dave, that was a $600 bill, I think.
Yeah.
I don't understand why we're paying people
But
to
I'm
make
just
something
saying, yeah, the
QuickBooks already
990
does
is
for.
Well, the worst part of the 990 is people, you do all the work, collect all the stuff, and you give it to them, and they just put it in their.
Right, yeah.
In their deal.
Or you download QuickBooks for them and they push a button and do it.
Exactly.
And you're paying $600 for them to push a button.
But,
They
but,
take responsibility.
that, that's.
But you're also paying $600 for them to know the tax law.
Right.
Right, and that's constantly changing.
We,
Yeah.
you can't have just a normal treasurer know the
No.
tax law.
No,
You're paying for knowledge, is what you're.
right, right.
Price of doing business.
And they get to stand up in front of the IRS. if you need.
And if it only costs you $600, trust me, you're getting a bargain.
That is.
Right.
And
Get
it's-
the bargain.
It's a half volunteer deal.
You're getting a bargain.
Okay. So to finish your question that you asked about whether to include that, what does the board feel relative to the $1,700 staying in Chester Gap's budget?
I regret that it happened, of course, just like everybody else, but I don't think we should try to take it out. You know, if you go to a bad body shop,
Right.
next year you go to a different body shop, you know, or you'll get somebody that knows how to do fiberglass. It is what it is. Pete?
No, I'm fine with leaving it in.
I think it should stay in. If you end up running short at the end of the year, it looks like you're doing fine now, but if you run short, then you'll just have to do fundraising, you know,
Yeah.
and you know now that you want to do something different.
Well, we're,
So-
like I said, I've passed.
And I think Ted said that last time, he didn't come to why.
I wonder why.
He said the same thing. I mean, you had,
It's kind of not going problem.
yeah. You all will make it work, you always do.
Even in,
JB?
Is this company still writing your checks?
Not now. Seriously, not now. They've created this since the last thing they're doing.
Because this was a failed experiment a year ago, and
Oh, JV, like I said, I've been trying for a year and a half to fire these people, but it's not my call. It's Todd's and the treasurer's.
But the thing is, you have a plan now. There's somebody who's gonna join, and
Yep.
you'll save that money to be able to use it to something else.
We may still pay an accountant, but we at least got someone who'll be more skin in the game. Yep, exactly.
Okay, other than one minor correction that I saw to the total tally, I believe, JB,
Minor.
that was in yours, taken out $408.
I've still got questions on Chester Gap.
Sure.
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
The 2007 Chevy Tahoe.
Yes.
bought used,
Yes.
less than a year old, and we've already spent $2,000
Yes.
on it in repairs.
But when we bought it, we were, told everything was fine, and of course, it's a used vehicle, so, I can't remember, let's see what it was. You have a line item?
No, it says
109.
inspection, tire, steering
Yeah,
replacement, cooler,
that sounds right.
evaporator, recharger, AC,
Yep.
brakes.
Yep.
So,
Sounds right?
that's why, I mean, I've gone on record as saying for the first year of the life of the vehicle, when you buy it used, the county shouldn't be on the hook for the maintenance of that vehicle.
Why?
Because when you buy a used vehicle, you'll be more judicious. I mean, I watched it happen in Culpeper County where company goes and buys a used fire truck. They spend $40,000 to get it running, and now the county's got to pay $40,000 for the motor to be repaired, transmission to be repaired, and air brake system and everything. So do you think that's fine on the county's position to pay $40,000 if you bought a used fire truck, the motor blows up the 2 weeks into you buying it, is the county on the hook for
You
replacing
wanna
that
give me
motor?
the money for a $60,000 Tahoe, I'll buy a brand new one, so you have no.
I understand that.
Well, no, but honestly though, that's what we're talking about. That's the difference between why we have repair vehicle costs within the first year of owning a vehicle and not.
Right.
You don't when you have a $60,000 because it's brand new. You do when you get something older. We put in for a teach vehicle to hopefully keep this from happening in a
But I'm
brand.
giving an example of
Oh,
an
absolutely.
old fire truck. Someone buys an old fire truck, used fire truck, motor blows up 2 weeks after you get it, and now the county's on the hook to replace that motor, according to what we set as a precedent here.
Well, I understand the concern, but again, when we get back to functional, you guys are only covering operations. You're not covering capital.
Right.
Fire trucks are capital. Fire trucks new are $600,000.
The issue is.
So no, but when it comes down to it,
The
we're
issue
getting
is
back
not
to
the
functional.
difference, the difference is not the issue as I see it, is not the difference between the used and cost and the new cost.
Right.
The issue is putting an incentive in there to,
I've got a great incentive, give us the money to buy a new truck. But unless you're gonna fully fund the companies for capital and for operational, you leave companies like ours, where we have no way of fundraising substantially enough to create the monies needed for a $600,000 truck. The only option we have then is to, with monies left over from fundraising or whatever else where we don't need it for operational, we buy what we can afford. So we're caught in betwixt and between. I was just talking to him when we started about what's required of fire companies anymore. With where we are on the mountain, and with the lack of public roads, going to some of the areas where we have to put out fires or go to EMS calls, we have to have vehicles that have to be able to have 12-inch or 15-inch clearances. We're talking pumpers. Because of what we have to do, we have to have not one vehicle, we have to have 3 vehicles. And so when we're talking about this quantity of vehicles are needed just to serve the area we're in, and without the county giving our company a way to be able to financially handle the cost of, so you're talking you'd rather have us spend 1.8 million, that's going to come from where? Well, no, but I'm saying functional. No, but see, you're posing a question without willing to consider all the caveats to the question. The question is, why aren't we buying new when or why should the
that's
company?
not the
No, the
question.
question is, why should the county
That's
have to
not the
cover the
question,
cost?
Mike.
No, the question of the county is, why should you have to pay for repairs on a used vehicle, but you're not providing an answer for how we can afford the new vehicles when they're county residents? This isn't something we're deciding to do for fun. Trust me, we'd rather have brand new vehicles. But when our options are that our operational expenses are what's covered, the capital are not, and we have to have the vehicles we have to cover our area, then you're leaving us no other choice but then to get used or file for grants and get turned down for them. So if we're not, you can't pose the question, why are we supposed to do financial incentive to do what?
For the
Do you
first,
think we're honestly going out and saying, what piece of shit can we buy on the side of the road just to satisfy a need?
Mike,
Come on.
Mike, give them a chance to talk. They've let you talk. This board has a right to talk to. Paige, go ahead.
Right.
Or JB, whoever.
The issue is not new or used. The issue is the discipline in buying used vehicles. For example, my son is an auto tech. Every time I buy a used vehicle, he is there doing a check on it, someone I trust, and I don't have big repairs coming within the first year. All right? Yeah, every once in a while you're going to have something that's a problem. And I'm not saying that you didn't do that. I'm not saying that you didn't
Right.
get screwed, okay? But the point of that criteria is, and JB gave an example in Culpeper where it was taken to an extreme, all right? And so but it's not, I just want to say, it's not a new or used. I understand, I won't speak for everyone else, I understand your problems, all right?
Right.
All right? But I believe my role is also to protect taxpayer money,
Absolutely.
okay? All right, so I'm not saying he did it on, that you did
Right.
it that way. I'm just saying, at
Well-
what point
Sure.
how much
That
will
is the
taxpayer pay for mistakes?
Well, here's the
All right,
question.
that's the question.
But what,
Right.
my whole thing is, during the first year of the life of a used piece of apparatus,
Sure.
any expenses incurred on that vehicle should be considered capital. Because, again, if you buy a pig in a poke, then you're gonna pay for it. I'm not saying that you bought one, but I'll give you a prime example. Fire company in Culpeper County right now, they just got a used fire truck donated to them because the company that had it knew that the motor had metal shavings in the pan. So they said, it's gonna blow, the motor's gonna blow up. We'll take it. So they took it. Motor blew up before they even got it back to their station.
Sure.
And now Culpeper County's on the hook for $35,000 to
Right.
replace the motor.
Right.
So,
I appreciate the question, but here's the thing. Your
for a
son's
truck
an
that's
auto
not
tech.
even in service, so.
Right, I know, but you said your son's an auto tech. Can he tell by looking at a vehicle about what's about to happen?
Usually, yes.
But I'm just saying,
Usually less.
during the first year of life of a used vehicle, anything that happens to it should be considered under the capital outlay for that vehicle.
I can appreciate your concern about the question, but then you're actually penalizing people for going down a route and trying to save the county money. Because let me ask you something. Donate a vehicle, but now they have to spend $35,000 on the replacement engine. If they were offered the $35,000 truck, would they have had a big problem about it? And then they have a vehicle with a brand new engine in it, that every other aspect of the bumper is fully functional. So the question I got is, are we looking at this the wrong way because we're so concerned about a repair happening within the first year? Or what are we realizing that we're actually, as a county, gaining something by understanding that we got people like Todd? I dare anybody in here to say that they're as good at identifying quality equipment as him, but anyway, that aside, how are we ending up on the short end? There was a $2,000 bill on a $7,000 truck that was blue booked at 15. So if we'd spent 15, you wouldn't have had a problem, but since we spent 7, but then 2 on top of it afterwards, that's a problem?
15
I don't-
would have been a capital outlay on your own.
So if I could, I believe the guidelines right now
Right.
don't include your
No, they
thought,
So-
and the guidelines could include anything this
No.
recommends,
Or
the
the
board agrees to. So if
Yeah.
the
Or
the
group's of
guidelines
the
is
mind
an
to change the
allowable
guidelines,
expense.
you can make that recommendation.
And
For the guidelines, it's an allowable expense.
my final question is $920 of wash and wax and a free mag light. Bill number 116, or no, 116.
116?
It's gonna cost $500.
It's a 5-gallon bucket, I assume.
No, that's, the 920 is for.
I'd say it's many
160.
gallon buckets.
Oh, here we go.
116.
Wash and wax.
It's a 5-gallon, it's a 4-gallon pail of wash and wax.
One 4-gallon pail for $920?
No, that 920 is for the piston intake valve.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's,
276.
you're not looking at 116.
Okay.
That's wash.
276 is
That's
276.
Yeah, that's 276.
$276 for the wash and wax.
Yeah, that's the wash and wax is the 276.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's the
Never mind.
one? Oh, so you just had them priced up.
$276 for the wash and wax.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the only question, or?
No, and then the relief valve, that should go under your equipment, not under apparatus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
As I said, the only change that I wrote down, unless somebody has something different, was the -408 on company threes. It reduces their
the only one I remember that affects the bottom line.
Right.
All right? But there were plenty of other issues in regards to analyses like Kim does of looking at overtime, because stuff is in wrong categories.
Right.
So how much of that should be fixed in these reports?
Well, the next.
I mean, I understand that they don't have the staff, they're volunteers, and it's a lot of work to clean some of these up. But in the meantime, it's impossible to do trend analysis.
Our companies use 3 different reporting procedures this time.
Yes, that's correct. But that's later in the agenda. I assume that's under guidance, right?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment. I personally feel this time going through the report, they were done much better, generally speaking. Okay, they were done much better. Obviously, every time we turn around, they need to be cleaned up. And one of the items here, we're gonna go through all the categories, and that's gonna change, which is gonna cause some more angst, getting the things cleaned up. But they were by and large, I think, better. And they were easier to read and understand and follow. And based on the number of questions, I think by and large, it was pretty self-explanatory. So we're going in the right direction. So bravo, zoogle with everybody doing that. It's a Navy term for it. Well done. A naval term. The only other thing I would say is just in general, really, the association really needs to get together with grants and make sure that everybody does grants. And in your recruiting, you gotta have a grant writer. I mean, you gotta have a grant writer, you know? And-
Oh, it is. Oh, it's how we paid for our ambulance.
Yeah.
We didn't pay a nickel for our ambulance, and there's a
No, but I'm just saying that,
$350,000 ambulance.
you know, you need to have, you know, when you're looking for associate members or something, see if you can find somebody who has got the capability of ranking. There are plenty of, I'll guarantee you, there are plenty of retired people out here in Rappahannock County who have done nothing but write grants for the federal government or whatever the case may be. If the only way is there any way you can type into them. And I don't know if like Rap at Home might have that capability. We might try them and see if they'd be interested in setting up a group to do that. But I would, you know, grants do make a difference, and I'm sure you all work on them. And I'm trying to build a food pantry now, and I tell you what, we need grants. So, more power to you. That would be one area.
It would be nice if the county would support like a RAP-U course on grant writing and give it to the departments for free if they have somebody attend, because it's in our best interest, right?
Yes.
You know, that's an
Well,
operation.
you don't have to calculate.
It's 100% operational
Rap,
funding.
you could do that.
Sure.
But yeah, but I would look to the association to be the entity that pulls that
Right.
sort of thing together for the
Right.
good of all companies.
Right.
That, I thought, and, you know,
Yeah.
Well,
Donna knew here, that's what the association's for.
Right.
Could the association buy a course?
The association gets 100% operational funding, and they have training lines.
Hire somebody that could give a course, do it through RAPU, use the school. It's not RAPU anymore, it's RAPC. And have RAP, that's a good idea.
Could
have
Kathy
RAP.
look for somebody?
But the,
Pardon?
Could Kathy look for somebody?
I can mention it.
Man, just
Or we could even hire, I mean, if somebody knows somebody that does this professionally, that's what you need to have. You need to have a professional who comes in here and, I hate to use the term consultant, but they come in, they teach a class, it might take 4 weeks to
I
teach a
think
class.
if you go to Path has 2 things out there. They have data grants, you know, for people who learn how to do data. And I think they have a fundraising grant, where you can get a grant from Path to do something like that. So the association could theoretically see if they could get them to come out and do this.
I mean, I could almost guarantee we could use a room in the school.
Yeah.
Or we could use a room at Rhapsody, or we could find a spot to do it.
I think that's a great idea, but I want to come back to Pete's first point. When I look at all the volunteer, it clearly implies you're gonna go out there and run an ambulance, or you're gonna fight a fire. There needs to be,
Ours don't.
Sperryville always has
Oh,
needing support
We
for
even
fire
put it up
and rescue.
on
I
our
just said-
billboard that
Yeah, support.
support members, the rescue squad's the same way.
my point is to make a concerted effort to get those type of people into each of, we got two right here that need different types. You need a grant writer and you need an accountant, all right? And clearly go after that. Then, after you have those people, then do the class. Because why train someone
Well,
that,
after you have those, if you've got somebody that's trained, you don't need it.
no, I still think you need it. I still think.
So
you need it.
I'm a grant writer for 40 years, or I'm an accountant for 40 years, and you're gonna tell me I have to go to a class? I don't think.
The theory behind it, forget the individual, if you're trying to throw that under the bus. The bottom line is, we need support people who can be treasurers, we need support people who can support grant writing, we can also hire grant writing companies as well. And if we could all a possibility.
We create an atmosphere that says that all companies could send somebody who's willing to learn how to do that in an efficient way. That, to me, the association could be very beneficial in that.
It's back on the association. With regards to the reports and the report formats, and how some of them have deviated, et cetera, we put out, and I know that I have sent out, Dave, I haven't sent it to you yet, but I will. I sent the spreadsheet, has all the calculations in it. It gives them the tool to use, and yet the choice is, in some cases, not to use the tool. The choice in some cases is not knowing how to use the tool, because you have to be at least knowledgeable with spreadsheets to recognize if you delete the totals off the pages at the back, you deleted the reference that comes up here. We send that out, and this is already reflective of the latest fire levy guidance. This is ready to go. As soon as, we then talk about that. The last thing is, all of these reports go through the Chiefs Committee. And the Chiefs Committee needs to push back and make the companies fix the reports that follow the format. And if they don't do that, then the fire levy gets that result. So, I think the chiefs need to work harder at cleaning these reports up before they get this board.
Paul, is there a version number in the title of it, so that we know immediately that we've got the right version?
No, there isn't. I could probably put that on very easily.
And like
Or date, created date.
Yep.
Right, the fall 2019 version.
I can-
And
I
we
can-
won't accept anything
August
less.
22nd.
So,
I can do that with that Excel spreadsheet, once we go through the fire levy guidance document and come up with any corrections, recommendations, et cetera, and then obviously the chart of accounts.
There is a Rhapsody course in Excel that companies could send to us.
It's an easy form.
Well, I know.
Really easy.
just out of curiosity, why can't we get company fours in Excel?
Company what again?
In
Company
Excel.
fours report, we don't get in Excel. I
Yes,
got
you
all
do.
the others in Excel.
No, you got it.
Yeah, this
We
year.
went through that. No, it's there.
It was sent in.
Company
Do
four
the
in
Excel
Excel.
report?
Nope. I never got it. The only thing I got was a PDF, and I sent emails to the chief telling him to send it to me in a Excel, and
Well, no, I I did the attachment. I sent the emails to you, Paul, and,
I got my version of his Excel with your email address on it.
I only got it in PDF.
because we sent that too.
It has Excel, and the only thing he didn't have was the second set of pages, that tab wasn't labeled, but he had all the data in it. So,
Didn't get to me.
that's up to him to send to you.
Because I sent you a notice that I did not have it in Excel, I was on vacation, and you needed to contact them.
And I did, and I
update
got
this.
he sent it to me and you, so. I got it, and it was in Excel.
Electronics, we love them.
Matter of fact.
'Cause I didn't get it until after I was back from vacation, and I didn't have any Wi-Fi where I was at, so.
The
So
only
we
other
made a
form that
motion
was
and
on there that I had a
second on
question
the
about
bills.
was the calls, and this was like scanned. Could anybody read? I could not read this.
What
Like,
in your eyes is the form?
Yeah.
It-
JB, where'd you get that?
That's just like
That was a hard copy that was
Xerox
scanned
that
to me
scanned.
because there wasn't an electronic copy available.
Yeah, I couldn't make out any, I was trying to,
Electronic copy was on a county computer, so, and I was on vacation. So,
Doesn't Sandy do that report?
okay, that was the one that I had trouble with.
she was busy that week, handling some other fires.
Okay. So this set of totals is the first half of next year's budget. Is everybody in agreement now that we'll send these forward?
First part.
First part.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not sending them forward.
Not necessarily 50%.
Right. Actually, we're $23,000 under last year.
I'll make a motion that these totals, the bottom line totals, go forward for the first part of the budget submit minus the 408 due in Amesville.
Second that.
Motion made, second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Brian.
All right. Next item up is the chart of accounts. This will form the basis of the budget submissions, not budget submissions, but basically the budget submissions and the 5-year outlook.
This will form the basis of the fire levy board's recommendation to the board of supervisors for what you think it should be.
That's what
Big
he was
difference.
trying to say. What he was trying to say.
All right, what you have in front of you, does everybody have a color copy of this? Because the red is kind of all the inputs from the association committee that reviewed both this and the fire levy guidance document, which consisted of treasurers. So basically, under the Rappahannock County, we were looking for, what the fire levy is on the revenue side, anything from fire programs, which is money we get from fire programs every year, for life, and capital improvement dollars, and anything from other municipalities, as well as income from cost recovery, and grants for operational or capital expenses. Donations with a note that says unusual large donations.
What does that mean, Jay?
Donations.
What do you think it means?
That means itemize anything, any large one.
What's that?
That's, I took that to mean you group the small ones and identify individual large ones.
Right.
so is a large
Yeah, but
one
if you-
more than $500 or more than
Well, it's
$1,000?
defined, but
It's
that's-
not a definition.
But each company is different.
But
Some-
you need to set a dollar figure.
Okay.
Anything under $10,000 individual donation, items.
Pile 'em
Pile them up, anything over $10,000. You don't have
Call it
to,
out.
you can't list the name.
No.
But you can say 10,000,
Anonymous.
and, yeah, well, you can just say five, you know, figure it out, but it'd be nice just to know that, but you,
Okay.
I don't
So
know,
what,
I'm just
10,000?
using, I just said 10,000, whatever you wanna use,
Whatever number you
15,000,
come up with.
20,000, whatever.
Pick a number.
So
whatever
where
number.
would,
Yeah,
But I
where
think
would
there
you
ought to be-
note this unusually large donation?
You would have to, it would be another line on the sheet.
So then why don't we make another line on the sheet that says,
Donations
large.
for-
Itemized, what,
itemized
I would
donations.
rewrite the note, is the itemized donations over whatever amount, right?
Yeah.
Pick one, fair trade.
I mean, you can put them in categories. 10 to 20, 10 to 19.99. I think the association needs to decide that. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but, you know, under 10,000, you know, whatever the case may be, but if that's what you wanna find out.
Personally, I don't think,
Or just say.
I don't think the county needs to know.
Or just
that
say
data.
donations.
Why is that important?
It's not important. I
Or
just,
just put
all total
donations
donations. I
Total
don't,
donations then, I don't care.
yeah.
Only reason it might be important, not to the county, but you would have a note probably somewhere else. I would think if someone gave a $10,000 donation, you might want to know that for budget purposes next year, as you know how much you do in your fundraising. But for the county, I don't think that matters, it's just donations.
Just
Don't you
donations.
think?
Yeah.
We would know.
Yeah, I say for your purposes, you
Sean would hope you would know.
would want to know that somewhere else.
That's your 501c3, you need to send them a tax letter, but.
I mean, do you think it's important that you know if it's unusual large?
Personally, I don't, because sometimes those larger donations are one time.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
They're.
a product of a will or.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And what could be a large donation to one company may not be a large, I mean, say if you're a small company, you got $1,000, you'd be like, whoa, that's large. But if you were a larger company, you got 10,000, you might be, oh, well, we get that every year from that person.
Does everybody agree that we just leave it as donations and
Right.
put a total
Yes.
on that?
I think that's the way to go.
Under-
Because
Okay, go ahead.
it, just to recognize, this is a submittal from the association. This is already approved by the association. So if you make a change, it's, you know, we'll take it back to them.
Well, that's a recommendation from the association. The only party that needs to agree to this is the board of supervisors.
Yes.
They can hear recommendations from a fire levy board, from the association, and if there are differences, they can decide whatever they want to do.
Under grants, why do we need that breakout? What's the difference between an operational grant and a capital grant?
I think Ann pointed that out in her bill submission, that she showed operational dollars that she received from grants, which offsets operational.
Oh, okay, you're right,
Okay.
all right, I understand.
And then capital grants would be like rescue SWAT
Yeah,
assistance.
I got it, okay.
That was Kay who recommended that or suggested that.
What are, I'm sorry to go back up, what are fire programs?
That's aid to locality, direct fund from the state, passes to the county.
well, currently, the way that's being reported, it's hard for the treasurers to break that money out, because right now, you get a lump check that's got fire levy, fire programs, and capital improvement money all in the same check. Whereas before, we used to get individual checks, especially when we would send capital improvements money to this bank account because it's in our capital account, and then the operations money went into this bank account because it's under operations. So now the treasurer has to move money around in between bank accounts, and then when you go to the accountant, they're like, why are you moving this money around?
And the county treasurer could cut different checks, we know that that's important to the company.
So we know it's coming.
Just being all cut at the same quarter, and so.
But so they know what line item it's coming from, so when we report it in our QuickBooks, it's going into the proper line item for expenses
And
and
then splitting the check.
Okay.
So fire fund, fire programs.
Some writing checks, the treasurer has cash.
Make your job harder. I thought that was how.
the thing is all this
Because
money.
the treasurer doesn't
the-
work for.
The money comes from
That's
different
the-
line items, so is coming out as quarterly payments attached to the,
Semi-annual payments
the-
attached to your
fire levy money.
semi-annual.
But if you look at our accounts, they're all listed separately, they roll down to one number and we cut one check.
Right.
But, yeah, that's because it seems convenient that way, but we're not on your side of the ledger, so we don't know that it's not convenient to you.
Well, I mean, that's what caused the question, because we're like, why are we getting more money than we requested on our quarterly payment? And then through some fact finding, go to the treasurer, and she goes, oh no, we put your capital improvements money in there and all your for life money, so. Then the treasurer has to backtrack and find out what the exact amounts were for those, so that they can make their accounting of them.
Okay. Fundraising, at list major events over $10,000, or just list major events?
Is there a reason why that was put in there?
I think I would guess that the association's trying to determine what the definition of major is. All right? So what is it that you want listed, right?
So you're saying all fundraising would be lumped together unless it was something like, use for example, the Rappahannock fireworks would be listed
Carnival.
separately, the Amosville Carnival separate,
Right.
where we have an amount for what that event generated. But other than that, it would just be fundraising. If it was like 10 different things and they all generated
We're
10,000,
just trying to-
it'd just be 10,000.
You're saying money generated less the expenses?
No, no. If you looked at the audit reports, for example, the audit reports show fundraising events, and then underneath says bingo, carnival, dinners, fund drives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then
Down
down
here's the
below that has fundraising expenses.
It says-
Yeah,
Oh, good.
yeah, just under expenses, don't be putting expenses in the revenue.
This is
Right.
just what it
Don't do-
brought in, this is just the
Please,
revenue.
please don't
Yeah.
do the deltas.
But there's no place to put the fundraising expenses on the current sheet.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
Okay, you're just jumping ahead. So the miscellaneous is sort of like your Costco rewards card? Is that like, your Visa rewards card?
Well, that's what was intended there. Not that much money.
Well, yeah, it's not that much money, and I would hesitate to list it. Just, if it isn't above and you still have some income, you put it in miscellaneous.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
I wouldn't limit it, because people are then gonna look at that
Yeah.
and just do that, all right?
Uncategorized revenue.
Huh?
Uncategorized revenue.
Yeah, yeah. But based on the type of accounts we have, maybe miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous, other.
Extra money.
I like Gary's term.
Gary's was clearly the technically correct answer.
Okay. Now expenditures. These are all the same things that were on here before: building and grounds, apparatus, fire and EMS supplies, and category for training. They just wanted the categories in there, so it was easier to move their data in.
Right, where was insurance is in category D now, right? Or E and C?
Yeah.
A and B.
No, there's personnel insurance in D.
Building insurance in A,
And building
apparatus
insurance.
insurance in D.
All right, so insurance can go away. Overhead was, okay.
Yeah, there's nothing on here for,
Fundraising expenses?
yeah, that should be net, not gross. know? Fundraising is net.
Yeah.
So just put, I would recommend for fundraising, just put net in there, because that's income. There's no use putting in there, I raised $10,000 and it cost me $11,000 to, you know, do it. So we're just interested in net.
But you're violating a basic rule of accounting by doing that.
No, you're not. You're doing, no.
Why wouldn't you just have a category of unreimbursed expenses?
Well, that's fine. Does that have anything to do with the budget?
Only as it offsets the fundraising.
I mean, does
The fundraising revenue has nothing to do with the budget. Based on the
Yeah.
guidelines,
I mean,
and
I'm not sure why
the
it
agreement
needs to
and
be
all
in there.
that now, it's good data and it's important for everybody to see how it all comes together, because that speaks to the company's ability to handle capital. I mean, the capital's got nothing to do with the budget, except for discussions that happens, but apparatus placement.
well, I mean, fundraising, if you're doing an audit, then I will agree with you that the expenses for fundraising needs to be on there because you're doing an audit. Is this an audit? What, you know,
No, it was intended to be, a summation of the audit, such that it was in a simpler form that would be used, remember this, the whole basis of this is keeping track of the financial viability of companies.
okay.
That's
So-
what the, and if you want to just use the audit form, we could do that too.
But as far as the company's viability is concerned, they should only, they need to figure out what the net income is gonna be for, that's what they're concerned with. That's what we should be concerned with. You know, I don't wanna micromanage, you know, I think it's useless information. If it's
Well,
a
which is-
projection for them, then they should be able to put the net in there and say, okay, I'm gonna, my projection for my net fundraising is gonna be $50,000. And then they need to figure out how they're gonna get to $50,000. And if they don't get to $50,000, then they're gonna have to raise, you know, then that's less money they have to work with. I mean,
Well,
we're
again,
complicating
what's easier for the company? Is it easier for the company to take your audit form, the numbers that you have to generate for that, put it in the first column, and then, and go out? So the idea was to build off of the Farmer and Cox audit. Use the same numbers rather than having them do other math to generate a different form that people would get confused with. I mean, that was the concept behind.
Yeah, but my audit form that I use tells me what, I know what my net is. I know what my net is, because in my fundraising, I see that. Yep, someplace else there's a thing that offsets the net and tells me what I expended. But, I mean, you know, yeah, fine, if this is what y'all wanna do, fine, that's okay with me.
It's not necessarily what we, at least not what I want to do. Net income is really all you need. If we spend $50,000 and only make $2,000 net, then we know not to waste our time and energy, because churning up on like our 4th of July event, that's a lot of work. And if we're only making $5,000 or $6,000, we're wasting our time. So we make those decisions as a business.
And it's not a budgetary item anyway, is it?
Exactly. So knowing what our net is seems easy enough for us to generate.
Now, wasn't this form approved by the board already last year?
Yes.
So
Well,
this
it was
is,
recommended by this group and approved by the board.
it was.
Having languished for a long period of time and got lost in ether,
Yes.
resurrected.
So this basically has already been to the board, other than some minor changes here.
Correct. But
Okay.
there's nothing on here that shows fundraising expenses.
I understand. And
So,
so that's an item that we can add.
or
That
just,
was something though, I think that was in here, because we talked about that several times, and it was up under administrative and A, wasn't it? And then we said
No.
fundraising
I'm
shouldn't
gonna
be
go back
there.
to the
We're
file,
looking at
I'm
the
gonna go back to
chart
the
right
original
now.
No, but
file.
I mean, like, last year, I mean, there was a different line for fundraising at one point, for the cost of fundraising,
I didn't bring my whole
the
file.
old one that we had. Because I remember we were like,
But it's not on here.
no, it's not on here.
Okay, so if it's not on here, you're talking, to me, you're talking on fundraising, it should be nothing other than that. Unless you wanna go down here and add a line down here, which I don't see
The
the
only
point.
pertinent information is the net. That's how much money in the bank each company has. How they get it is up to them, I would think.
Well, not only get it, but how we manage our funds throughout the year.
Sure, but
Because we have
we
to-
know that in the fall, we're gonna do a boot drive, we're gonna make X number of dollars.
Average, yeah.
Average.
Well, I mean, that's part of good budgeting.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So to your point about we've used 30 or 50 or 60% of our budget at a period of time, if we're exhausting our budget early in the year, we're probably not going to have a 4th of July event. You know, because we have to plan for that. That's part of our strategic investment. Spend money to make money. That's what the idea is.
Well, unless the expenditures are important for the fire levy board to have that knowledge. I mean, that's the only knowledge base from that perspective.
You know, the only thing that I saw about having, and again, it's not in here, and I agree it's not there, was if you have what your fundraising expenses are, you truly recognize that there are times when large events, carnivals, or turkey shoot, or, you know, whatever other events each of the companies has, is whether or not it's degrading in one case. You know, if you're showing your expenses are going up and up and up, but your income is going down and down and down, then that's a decision-making process for the company. But it also helps to show the board that, hey, yes, we make money in donations, but look what it costs us. So if you just show a net, then that's all you're showing is the income.
Yeah, but you're showing the final outcome. This goes back to the question I asked earlier. Unless we're willing to go down that road of micromanaging each company and how they handle their business, I don't see how this is valuable to the board. All that's gonna do is create a conversation that I think we all can agree would be a dangerous and slippery slope to go down.
I think the only positive, I'll just throw this out there, is being in this environment, just like I made the comment to Fun Hill, it wasn't a negative to Fun Hill, but other companies are getting grants, how can we help get grants? So if you look at what your total intake is and then what your net is, and other people are looking at it, I mean, throw that out, that might help them in things that they're doing. I know I had a really great conversation with Ann last time the meeting was over, and we were just brainstorming and talking, because I'm working on something as well, and how, you know, she went out and went door to door and met people, and that's how they really got a lot of funding to come into Washington. They got door to door, they met them, people started volunteering and helping them in associate positions, like, yes, I'll come and volunteer to do that, or I'll come and help at the fire hall. I mean, it's the same thing Sperryville does, they do that big push and drive.
Right.
So sometimes I think if it's not at the association, maybe here, it triggers a thought that, you know, maybe if this company went door to door, or maybe this fundraiser is really great, how can we be part of that fundraiser? They're really making good money there. The only thing that I think is really important in the bottom line is having on here, some way you can figure out the net, whether you show the total, the gross, and you show the expenditures, for the county to see what I have always said. We're not funding it 100%, guys, but they're there for us 100%. And I think it's good for the county to see that, you know, you are out there working so hard. You're getting grants, you're going door to door, you're doing food drives, you're doing carnivals, you're doing dinners or whatever. But it shows that, you know, you're not only giving of yourself and your time to run the calls, but you're also keeping it and funding it and keeping it going forward and trying to entice new people to come in. So I don't think it's bad to show those two things. If it's a pain, I think, just so people get an idea of what's this different fire department doing? Do you think I'm wrong in saying that?
Well, but if you put down there, if we got a trend, if you say, you're doing a 5-year projection, okay? And, so I'm looking out 5 years, and I say, okay, fundraising this year's, my traditional fundraising has been $15,000, okay? So, on an average, and you should see, 1 year it's up, 1 year it's down, because it rained and the carnival got rained out, or the fireworks got rained out, or whatever the case may be. And that's fine.
About 50%.
Or it can be a fall, when they're gonna do a
But
boot
the only
drive and it
thing-
rains and nobody's
The only
stopping.
thing I'm concerned about is, remember this board, is what your trend is. I don't care what your expenses are, because you say, I'm raising $10,000 in fundraising, and if you don't make the $10,000 mark, you gotta make it up someplace else, or do something else, or to make a decision, or whatever it is. I just wanna see what the fundraising trend is for each one. I wanna see what the grant trend is for each company. And if one company does grants for $5,000, and the other one does $50,000, then it's incumbent on the association to get with that fire company, or whatever the case may be, within the association, say, man, you need to do more grants. I don't need to tell you that. You ought to be smart enough to be able to figure that out.
Well, grants are cyclical too.
Right.
I mean, you don't go out and get a grant
Well, again,
unless you have to.
you've got a trend, because you might not be eligible for that grant for 3 more years.
Right.
And so,
Where fundraising is a constant.
we should be.
For relative, yeah.
Well, to that point, I would say it would be even more important to see what your expenditure was for your fundraising, to see how much it's costing you to get that money now versus how much it did before.
But we
You
do
know,
that.
But I'm saying, if you were putting that on here, people would see that trend, because it might be that, you could say 4th of July, oh my gosh, our expenses have gone way up, and we're still making the same amount of money at the gate.
I think the challenge for someone like me is the governance aspect of volunteering for fundraising. This is something we choose to do. We do this at, like, the fireworks for company too. We do it because we have the capacity to do it. Castleton can't do that.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that
Amosville does
something,
Carnival because they're in a great proximity.
Right.
It varies for company to company. Flint Hill,
Every
Oh.
company used to do a carnival.
right,
That's gone
exactly.
out. Don't
But
do
if
that anymore.
there was a projection that they were gonna raise $10,000, and then the governance aspect steps in and says, you have to raise $10,000, create a problem.
I don't think anybody's gonna, that's not
Well,
what
it's
we're
the
saying.
expectation
Right.
from an
But
outside
but
source.
oh yeah, but
We
you're
have our own
saying,
estimate.
are you being like from the public saying to you, you need to do
Whatever.
this?
All right, let's pull it back to the table here. What do y'all want to do?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that other thing's not on here. This has been approved by the chief, so until something is put on here, then that to me means that.
But you can still make a recommendation on this
Well,
as it goes forward
right.
and make whatever change you want to make.
I personally like the idea of seeing the fundraising and the expenditures of the fundraising. I think it shows a trend.
I agree with that.
I don't want it to be extra work. It's not like something that someone's gonna say that's bad or not, but it's just good knowledge to know what the cost is for the fundraising.
In the P&Ls off of QuickBooks, it pops right up. You can just go to the bottom line total and move it over there. It's that simple.
I just think it's a little important.
On the issue of saving work, the audits right now have a line on them, Farmer Cox, fundraising costs. It's
I
one
know
line.
I've seen it somewhere.
All right, so, you
So
know,
if you have 6 fundraisers, you want the total cost?
Yeah,
yeah,
Because,
Not by each.
but you'll put the fundraiser
Line
at
item
the,
fundraiser.
you'll put the fundraiser at the top, total, and the fundraising expenses.
Right.
So the
Not
net
broken.
is then figured from there.
then it's up to you all to decide, is that a fundraiser that's viable or not? Yeah.
Well,
It's your
all I'm
decision
trying to say
ultimately if you decide to do it.
you already have the information.
Yeah, you have to have it
Alright.
for that.
No, we know.
Huh?
You know, it's there.
Yeah, so saying is just, it,
Well, I think it's.
I'm trying to come up with a politically nice way to say this. The people that are looking at this information are Gary's bosses, all right? Last time I checked, not one of them was an accountant, all right? Having to translate from a form that was different, that was nets, versus this form, might be actually confusing. It might be better to keep the same kind of format, but not quite as detailed as this is.
And
That's what this
that's what
concept
this
was
was.
trying to be,
Yes.
all right? That's all it was trying to be, all right? So, I seconded your proposal.
And it's not micro, you put your events together, you put your expenditures together. You all will ultimately make the decision. It's just
Yeah,
good
it's not-
information to see. You
Yeah.
might say, it's not worth it anymore to us, boom, gone.
But we don't have any say in it. We can't tell them whether they're gonna
No,
do the carnival or anything else like that.
No?
and we're not saying that.
I mean, that's why we stopped doing the carnival.
Exactly.
The net income is not worth the time putting it up there.
Right.
Okay, so if we're going to do fundraising, then does it have to have the level of specificity that's already there, major events, rentals, interest, sale?
Well, actually, let me give you a way to even simplify it farther, right? To what they're saying, personally, I don't care how much each of the events cost. I just want the total fundraising. I just want a list of what are the big ones that you work on. That's it, doesn't have to have the number that goes with the fireworks. It just says, our major events are this, this, and this. Boom. Total fundraising is that, total fundraising expenses is this.
That's probably easy.
And some are zero cost.
So
Yeah,
all
No,
you
I don't care.
like a
Food
I
drive
don't
is
care.
zero
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah, so
I
that's,
don't
you
care.
know, that's just like the fireworks. I believe last year it was $81,000 in front end. Probably not this year, but I remember in the budget, it was either last year or year before when we were
Right.
reading it, because I was like, kudos that you did that much. I don't know what it brought in this year, but you're right, some will have zero cost, though, it'll make it even look more effective, gosh, we brought this in for this, you know?
Paige, is it your contention that then if you say fundraising, you say list major events, that's name only?
Yes.
Okay.
So where are we gonna put fundraising?
We'll move that down. Fundraising expenditures can go all the way down under capital expenditures. And all you're gonna do is say fundraising expenses.
Okay. Is that a capital expenditure?
It's the third major.
Yes. Overhead came out along with insurance.
capital fundraising.
So fundraising will be a separate expenditure.
Same indentation as the capital is.
Same as operational capital, there's three major things here, operational capital fundraising.
Okay. Fine.
Okay. And then that, under fundraising, you would delete rentals, interest, sale of equipment, and keep uncategorized, or just drop it off.
Huh?
Gary's, where we had miscellaneous,
Why are we dropping all those off? Because those are,
Well,
You lost me.
that's
What are
not
we-
a fundraiser.
those
Sale
are
of
the same
equipment's not a
category as
fundraiser.
No, that would be different.
No,
I mean,
rental is
rentals
a
is
rental.
totally different, like rentals of a hall.
They're not bolded on this form.
No, yeah.
All
Rentals,
rentals
interest,
are
and
fundraising.
sale of equipment to me is separate
That's part of
category.
fundraising.
Right.
The rental?
Of the hall?
Yeah,
It's a fundraising.
sure.
Sure. Yeah, so they need to be kind of.
What are rentals?
No.
Rental of the fire hall
Weddings.
for weddings or
Oh,
family
yeah, okay, so
reunions.
renting out the fire hall, that's a
Yeah.
totally separate, okay, got it. All right.
Or if you have a fire, we'll rent you a fire truck.
I'll rent you my pond for the
See, I
water.
think rentals ought to stay on
We'll just
there.
call it a fair deal.
Yeah, it's a
I think
lot.
rentals ought to stay on there.
What?
I think rentals ought to stay on there.
I think the
that's
rental should
important.
say, that's an income, so is interest on,
They're
on
under they're supposed to.
accounts.
They put that on there for our cell tower,
Those are types of fundraising.
because we get
Now, sale of equipment is a fundraiser.
Well, you're right, so cell towers would be in rentals, but also wouldn't, rental in the hall would be in there as well.
So there's an expense associated with renting a hall as well.
interest is out of your bank.
Yeah.
So that should be that's a separate after that,
Presentation
Just
level
make
is
those fundraising.
Right.
right,
Yeah.
that should be bolded.
So rentals, interest, and, sale of equipment should all stay on there, it's separate.
But I guess my question to Enosville then is, how much money do you make on the cell tower?
Let's go to the audit.
And where do you put it?
I think it was like
Where do you put it on here?
$1,900 a month or something like that.
Where do you put it on
What
here?
is that for 21?
Where do you put it on here as rental?
He puts it in rentals, all right, to answer that question.
But that's not what we just said rentals were.
Well,
No, it's the above, it's the hall plus any,
They're renting part of their property.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're renting part of the property.
Wait a second. We just said 2 seconds ago that renting the hall is part of fundraising.
No.
No,
That's what I said,
that's what he said, okay?
but you said no.
No, I think it's separate.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I don't care, but if we put it under there, then the cell tower has to have its own.
Cell tower is listed in the audit as close to 25,000 a year.
Well, I understand that, and I don't have a problem.
That's a
with it.
separate item though.
I'm just trying to
Well, So I would,
But
make
is
sure
that
that
a,
things
is that
go in the
a,
right.
Every fire
is
company
that
had
a
one,
miscellaneous income?
they just let them go.
It's a rental.
Or a rental?
It's a rental, because you have a rental agreement.
We couldn't get one.
Yeah, you could.
Uh,
In the original cell tower thing, you had one.
I know we did, and then we lost it.
anyway. Was there any significance to why some of these were bolded and some weren't?
They're all gonna be building.
It was supposed to be the head of the categories, but some of that got lost in translation.
Okay, so to be consistent, either the second level should either be all bolded or not bolded, right?
So rental, interest, sale of equipment would be bolded.
And miscellaneous.
And miscellaneous, or uncategorized.
Uncategorized.
So just to ask one quick question, should rentals say rentals and leases, since the cell phone tower is gonna be in there and that's more of a lease than a rental? Just asking the question, since it seems to cause some confusion.
You
It
know,
doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
Having looked at those audit reports for over 10 years, I can tell you right now that each company is done different based on how they do their accounting as to what shows up in that report and what doesn't show up. And I always wanted, if you could standardize the company, which theoretically you are, other than unfunded stuff, which is, fundraising.
Not to second guess Gary's decision, but that's why I didn't like Farmer and Cox.
Well, I drove me nuts trying to figure it out.
Anyway, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
So those will be properly bolded.
All right. Moving on.
And then fundraising expense will occur basically where staffing is now at, it'll say
Well-
fundraising expenses.
I disagree with taking staffing out. Do the companies spend money on getting volunteers?
They moved that down here, staffing volunteers down here. That's what I read.
That's
so it was
the
big.
count, I think.
No, wait.
That's how many.
Go back to the original,
Oh,
go
that's-
back to the original, that what this was the actual count of staff.
Right.
Okay.
How
This
many
wasn't,
people?
this wasn't the funding side, this was how many staff do you have,
Okay.
all right?
And if you go way back to the original of this document, when Debbie Kaiser created it, she had paid on it.
Right, and I still think paid should be on there, even though we don't have any paid now, and we probably won't have it for a while, it doesn't hurt to have it there, and we don't have to modify it again when it comes.
Well, I would argue it should be, it's operational if it's staff, and if it needs its own category, that's fine, but it's operational.
So you'd put it up you'd actually put paid staff up in the category,
Well, I don't know what category it fits, it doesn't necessarily.
well, it'd be a new
It
category.
might be a new category.
It'd be a new
County's ledger, I don't know. I'm not
Yes.
paying people,
Yeah.
the county's paying.
Well, that's
That's
another
a
point,
question,
that's another point, maybe that's why paid staff should come off, because they are county employees, right?
Right.
That's
Heavy right now.
That's what we read about that committee that started, that's gonna go off and
Right.
look and see what's best. I guarantee you the committee's going to Gloucester to find out how that worked, and talking with those folks.
Oh, boy, they're gonna really
You got a
like
chair
that
of the
answer.
committee who's gonna make those decisions.
That's
All right.
the chair said that.
So, I guess after that discussion, kind of agree with taking paid staff off.
And
It's
that
a
was our,
it's county expense, not
Well, all that means is that
wait a
the
second.
companies aren't gonna
Unless-
get reimbursed for any staffing expenses. If it's not on this chart, then the companies don't get reimbursed for staffing.
Well, now I come back, now I think it's noted by Gloucester. So if the companies actually have to hire the paid staff, then it should be on that chart. And we don't know what that decision is
that's a
yet.
big if, and the thing is,
Yeah.
you know, based on our surrounding jurisdictions, you go to Warren County, you go to Fauquier County, you go to
County
Montgomery
pays the
County,
bills.
and, you know, those bills are paid by somebody else, they're not the company.
So for the time,
Gloucester was the only one that I heard of that was paid to the companies for them to do the hiring. I'd never heard of any others that way.
all right, so,
And then it was the
so I'll go back to
association.
my original recommendation, if I can remember what that was. Take paid staff off. All right? Under the, then leave it off, excuse me, under the assumption that they will be county employees. If the committee changes it, we'll have to change this form.
Sure. Right. And there might be other categories in there on that paid staff.
Yeah, they probably will.
Yeah, the committee's got nothing to do with, the committee will make a, I mean, ultimately,
The committee
whether
will-
the board of
right.
supervisors hires staff or does, I mean, that's,
Right,
you know.
right, exactly.
That's
Sorry
far enough
for
down the road
overstating
that
the
this
committee's
form
role.
today doesn't need to recognize.
Right, right, so just, the point is, for today, but I do think that, is volunteer recruitment crossed off too?
Yes, it falls under
Yes.
category C.
Oh, because
Not
it's in category C of operational expenses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recruitment and retention is,
So can I ask a question? In the case of Chester Gab then, who had professional fees, and if they have to go back and have a fee person to do that, that doesn't fall anywhere now if we take out, wouldn't that be under paid staff?
You have fees on it.
Yeah, but nothing on here about paying a person.
Well, you can't list everything that it's covered.
But it's okay to put it under those fees?
That's a contract.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't gonna fall out and they weren't gonna be able,
Well,
because it says post office box rental, vehicle title fees, security guards, application fee and articles of incorporation, and not medical fee or EMS cost recovery, so it didn't say anything about,
So that would fall into that category then?
the accountant would fall under fees.
All of these bills have to fall under one of the category letters. That's how
Right.
those work. Everything else is other stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay, so I just didn't see that professional fee on there, I thought, is that what they meant by paying?
Well, because they're hiring a company, they're contracted with
right.
somebody to
But-
do a task for them.
But I
So-
agree that,
It's not clear.
put it in there.
You need to
Yeah.
put it,
We need to put it in there and
Professional
say,
fees or
so if
something.
you hire
I
somebody
want you to come back and say you can't get your new
Yeah.
one.
in the guidance,
Can we stick to the chart of accounts and finish that?
Yeah, let's do that.
And then we'll switch over to the.
So,
To this one here, you mean? Okay, all right.
I now understand why
Sure.
staffing
Sorry.
is, recruiting is gone, because it's in one of the categories.
Right.
All right, so that's why it's gone. All right, got it. Fundraising has to be added because, as an expenditure, because it's not an allowed expenditure under the categories.
Right. And then the assets was the same way it was. Liabilities to show whatever loans are outstanding on whatever buildings or apparatus. And then how many volunteers we have in our, each of the stations.
That's just a number of volunteers, not a particular type of volunteer.
No, it's just a total.
Okay, good enough.
so under assets, is that asking for dollar amount? Or just,
Well, that's a good question.
It is a good question.
Do we
because
want,
the county rates my fire station at $380,000.
oh, the
Yeah.
building assessment?
Yeah,
Do they tax you too?
no.
That's pretty close, isn't it?
Huh?
That's pretty
No,
close.
they
costs me-
rated mine the same as his. His is definitely bigger.
You got 2 new garage doors, of
Come
course
on.
yours is.
That is a good way up.
They didn't know about that.
And an army truck.
But I'm
And a
just,
plow, don't forget the plow.
I'm just saying it's pretty subjective as far as your apparatus
would say just list the equipment without a dollar value
But
associated.
If you
with it.
do.
Agreed.
Two fire engines.
I mean, if you do an audit, you have to depreciate that stuff. You have to
Yeah,
show
but
your
the
depreciation.
depreciated value
It's not actual.
in a tax situation is different than what the value of the truck is when you try to sell it.
Right,
Because you depreciate it to zero,
right,
not what it sells,
right.
what you can sell it.
Right.
So
And that's the problem. is-
And again-
we want to drop the tax aspect out of this. And if we just list the equipment, a 2003 Pierce, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
well, and end of story.
And who's gonna estimate what it costs anyway?
Well, it's in
And
your
we're gonna
insurance
argue about that
papers.
for about 3 or 4 meetings, and it won't come to any agreement.
Okay, so you're not gonna list, you're just gonna list the equipment and then just.
A list of,
But even having the list of equipment would still be a good thing,
yeah.
because it took a while to get that out of the strategic plan, right?
It's an inventory.
It's an inventory.
There you go.
And it's the same with equipment, list the major types. I mean, you can't list all the equipment that we have in stations or on the trucks.
No.
You just
Well,
can't do it.
buildings and ground, kind of the same point, buildings and ground, you just give the address?
Building, shed garage, storage building,
So there's different.
carnival ground.
Carnival ground. So Flint Hill's got all these carnival ground
Yeah.
buildings in the back. but
Don't they?
I-
It's,
And a
or
dunking booth.
6 outbuildings, or, whatever you want to,
However
whatever
you
you
want.
want to boil it down.
I'm trying to, I was,
6
What-
days, 8 days, whatever you got.
Two-way thing.
see, I would almost do it by parcel. Just say this parcel per whatever. If one company happened to buy some other parcel as an investment, yeah, put that on there maybe, but.
I don't think I could afford to buy the land next to my fire station.
Well, well, we know your financial situation. But Amosville could probably buy the rest of Amosville.
Oh, yes, sir.
Could buy a garage.
Only a couple of houses.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Could buy it.
Then you got another rental property.
Unless you bought all 800 acres.
Oh, believe me, somebody would buy the house across the street and do that. Build more houses.
How's everybody feel about just the list of equipment,
Yes.
an apparatus,
Just like it is.
list of major types, and then the building and grounds would be just a minor list of your buildings, structures.
Or you could do acres, 5 acres,
Yeah.
whatever.
Whatever.
5 acres, 3 buildings,
1/2 acre.
that's whatever.
Okay.
Loans and liabilities, that's just the loans on the trucks or for any buildings, and the number of volunteers.
Does that include term,
Or just outstanding amount, what does he mean there?
outstanding amount, balance?
That was,
Years
it
left,
actually said
1 year
loan
left.
payment. All of that other information's in the audit report, okay? Because the
I would-
audit report pulls it right out of the bank and says, okay, if you have, this truck, it's a loan payment, it's this much money for this many years.
Just to scare Gary, if I was a board of supervisors member, I would want to know what the outstanding balance was. Right? The total liability. I wouldn't care about the payment, I would want to know what the total liability.
I think you're right, yeah.
God, that was a great joke and Gary didn't even react.
Makes sense.
Because it's 8:30.
Gary left an hour ago.
He's tired, it's been a long day.
He's still here. He left.
So you don't care about the payment, you'd rather have just the total
Total
liability?
liability.
Total liability, that's all
Pete?
it is.
That's fine.
Yep. JB?
It's fine.
Okay.
Total liability.
I don't want to vote, but I think they would want to know the liability and the remaining term. It's a lot different if you have $50,000 and it's 2
1
years,
year.
or
So you mean,
10 years, or
so you
30
mean you
years.
break it out, like if it's a piece of apparatus, it's got a 20-year payment for $25,000 a year for the next 20 years?
I figured we didn't have that many loans, but maybe we do.
Oh, gosh, I guess you
Oh, yeah.
We have 2.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good,
Gap has one.
it would be good to know the.
Yeah.
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to know what the payment is, but I would certainly want to
Well,
know
the liability and,
$250,000 for 10 years. I
Right.
would-
the liability and the number of years.
And remaining
left to
term.
pay.
Remaining.
Yeah.
Remaining term.
Yeah.
Is that good, Gary?
Then I.
Remaining term.
Yeah.
Total liability and remaining term.
Yeah.
We got at least 5 trucks being paid for in the county right What's the specifics?
Total liability.
Bonds were paid for that.
Yep.
Okay.
So, but at the liability at the time of the report, so it's like
It'll be a moving
$200,000 for 8 years left on a 10-year loan, that's what they wanna know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're gonna get soaked for in the end.
I will make all those changes and ship that out electronically to everyone. And we can also put it up as a product of the board meeting here.
Can I ask one quick question? How often is the audit done, every year? Every other year?
Some companies do it, they do a random sample.
No.
It depends on whether there's a huge transition in staff and county administration and they miss a year.
No,
So the board of supervisors authorized every other year.
Okay. And that's, the county's supposed to do an audit every other year.
So is that going to transition as 2019, we're going to skip all audits on all companies?
This year we did 4 and they're
Okay.
So they're scattered.
They're splitting it up.
4 and 4.
Because association's included as an audit now, so it's 4 and 4.
So are the fire companies under the normal 501c3 issue? So if the fire company, for example, you do away with a fire company, they're required to sell all their equipment? And then all the money is distributed amongst.
There's a whole bunch of state code about what happens to the equipment.
And it's all incorporated anyway, right? Each
Well-
company is incorporated.
Well, that's.
I've read that part of the code twice, and I'm still reasonably
No, I'm
confused.
just,
All
I
right,
know,
but basically, the county gets first dibs.
Right.
All right?
no, that's,
It's not, yeah, it doesn't get parsed out, it's because they're incorporated separately in their 501c3 separately.
There's no
yeah,
joint.
but normally
You
when
have
you,
to
when
read the code.
You have to read the code, it's not
You
that
can't
simple.
even comment
No,
unless
no,
you read the
Not
code.
gonna happen anytime soon.
No, it's not.
No.
no, I'm just,
Not read, so.
Adjourned.
I'm just curious.
Let's move on to fire levy guidance.
So, I'm not advocating.
Fire levy guidance, we changed on periodic maintenance, just amplified by saying HVAC service, maintenance agreements, et cetera. We had moved cell phones over to category C communications.
Because all cell phones that we pay for are for operations while in the vehicle, correct? While on the scene.
No personal cell phones to anybody.
Well, or no cell phones, just, well, I'm not saying personal, I wouldn't mean to go that far. I'm just saying that there are a lot of people, not in Rappahannock County because of coverage, that use cell instead of a landline, all right? So,
That won't happen here for a long time. All right, apparatus, we talked about company maintenance and supplies and its major repairs, periodic service excludes vehicle service. And this is the one, excludes vehicle service, repairs on used apparatus for 1 year from activation.
This is the comment that was made earlier.
Right.
Yes. If this, obviously, at some point, you're going to,
So-
a motion made on this in a second. Soon there will be at some point, formal action by this group on revised chart of accounts or revised fire levy recommendation to the board.
I was just gonna do them both at once.
Yeah.
question I have has been confusing, and it's obviously confusing in the subnets, all right? When originally done, and I thought there was one where you had, you know, repairs sent out to a big technician to do it versus repairs done by the staff itself. In other words, you know, you were buying supplies, you're buying oil and filters for the volunteers to change it versus sending it somewhere. Do we need to differentiate from that? So we're just putting it all,
It's,
what is apparatus repair versus,
Well, it's apparatus repair and apparatus maintenance.
So if something broke, it's in the repairs.
Apparatus.
If it's periodic maintenance,
Changing oil,
if it's periodic
rotating
maintenance,
tires.
you know,
It has
Right.
some minor maintenance in here and
That's a-
repair.
That apparatus repair is basically a title for everything underneath it. So it just.
Oh.
That's a header, and then
Yeah.
everything
It's a
else
header,
is just a
And then
sub.
underneath is company maintenance, or maintenance and supplies, fuel, vehicle insurance.
So it's,
So it
so
doesn't need to be
we've
there.
got,
So
it doesn't
Wait,
need to be,
no.
it should be a second column then.
Well, see,
apparatus repair needs to be like communications with a,
apparatus repairs in two places. Which one are we talking about?
Exactly.
this one.
Look at here.
that, hey, let me show you the example. You have facilities, and then you have blah, 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 administrative, blah, 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 communication. Now this here says apparatus repair, and then blah, blah, blah. So it's just like the heading for communications.
It just needs to
It
be
is using the
with
same
the semicolon
semicolons.
or the colon.
Right, it just, it needs to be in
Okay,
different.
so is there one item under apparatus repair, or all of them are under apparatus repair?
All of these here, from the lined out company down, is all under apparatus repair.
So in the broad category B of apparatus repair, you have a subcategory apparatus repair, which there are no other subcategories in
That's what it
apparatus
said.
repair.
Thank you, Gary. All right, because,
So we can take that off.
Yeah.
We'll just take off after
For
the
second-
category.
The second one.
okay, but I want to do just a couple different examples, all right? I can see that towing and tires and maintenance and supplies could be apparatus repair. Putting diesel in the tank is not a repair. All right? Buying insurance is not a repair.
So the
So-
header should be apparatus maintenance and repair.
App-
Or operations.
Apparatus operations.
And repair.
So this one, so what I would say is the main one over here should be apparatus.
Apparatus O&M.
Yeah.
There you go,
Yeah.
apparatus O&M, all right? And then we have repair, which would have maintenance and supplies, tires and towing. And why tires is broken out, I still don't understand why.
They're expensive. They're expensive.
Okay, and then the other two subcategories would be, one would be fuel and one would be vehicle insurance. Can you follow that?
Tires are also required to be changed. Yes, by law.
Okay,
So many years, just like equipment.
okay.
Okay, give me all that again.
All right, so this over here,
Got it,
that's apparatus O and M.
got it.
All right? Apparatus repair stays the way that, as a colon, and then maintenance and repairs is indented. Then tires and towing is moved up to and indented
Underneath apparatus repair.
underneath apparatus repair, and then fuel and vehicle insurance are down at the bottom, not indented.
And separate categories comparable to apparatus repair.
Thank you. You got it.
I'm slow.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
I was still,
Okay.
I was still
Yes.
two changes behind.
Okay, so make that a larger font.
Got it.
Okay, then you got one, maintenance, tires and towing are three subcategories under the apparatus repair. Insurance and fuel are also bold, large categories under apparatus O&M. So now we have three, just like we have three under buildings, we have three, under there. Okay, that's it, we got it. Now,
All right, category C was where we put communications. We moved the cell phones over to fire and EMS equipment. And nothing else basically changed until it was just an amplification added for lodging. Lodging only and mandatory hotel parking fees.
All right. I make a motion that we approve both this one and the chart of accounts as amended and recommended to the board.
All right, we have a motion on the table.
I just wanted to add one thing. Do we need to put in about that professional fees, or do you think it just doesn't matter, so it won't be a question later?
I think professional
That
fees.
under a professional fee for personnel,
you're
under
saying-
administrative.
You're just saying, put an example over here.
Just put an example over under
Yeah.
fees for
Right.
professional
Yeah, just
consultant
include that,
or,
please, just some kind of note or something.
yeah. I
Right.
just think it should be there in case the
Oh, I
question
agree.
comes
Well,
up.
That'll
It
be
will come.
someone that does our 990.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly
right.
right.
Well,
You need somewhere to
That's where
put that.
it'll go.
Because if you don't have
Did you
that,
catch
it
that,
starts going everywhere.
He's trying.
So what category is that?
It would just go
It's
under
under the
It
fees.
says under
Under
buildings
fees.
and grounds, under fees, under facilities,
Yeah.
under fees, we just add another example of professional
Right.
fees.
Yeah,
Right.
I just think it makes it clear because it is on people's worksheets. And then I just have one other thing.
Sure.
I won't say anything else.
Okay, I modified it once.
No, it's nothing about that, it's just, it's a format question. So, on the budget submission charge of accounts, we had had this form before where they had given us like year 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and not lumped together. Does that mean that we're just gonna go with it lumped together? Because I just say, I know it was a little bit more work, but once you start laying that format down, you see things, for example, like with Flint Hill, who is $11,000 more this 6 months than before, but all justified because she needed fire equipment, which cost her almost $11,000. So it's kind of nice to see that, you know, it keeps it in your mind that when this fire apparatus comes in, their budget really changes from much. It doesn't mean that they aren't managing their budget, but it makes you think about these things are coming up and you don't see like, this is this year, next year, the upcoming year is this, but the 5-year projection is this huge amount. How does that break down? When you see year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and tell me if it's just too much trouble and that's why they didn't do it, you see how something goes from being $3,000 to $12,000, but then back down to 4, but then you have another one in the next year where it goes back up to 12 because it cycles through and changing out the fire equipment and the apparatus. It's usually 3 or 4 at a time, and then you may not have any, then you'll need another 3 and 4.
When originally intended, the 5-year projection was not 5 years added together. It was the yearly number at the 5-year out.
It was more of an average kind of a thing?
Well, not an average, it was what do you expect that expense to be, or that
Over
income to
5
be?
years.
No,
No.
5 years
That's
from
right.
now.
From now. If
What
you
would it be,
took-
what would that number
If
be
you
5
took
years
your
from
spreadsheet and then moved
Right.
out 4 columns, that's your 5-year projection,
Yeah.
okay?
But that wasn't the way it was done
I
on some. Some of them
understand.
added them together and had this big total accurate,
Correct.
like year
Right,
1,
right.
2, 3, 4, and
But
5, and then it's
but
like,
in order to come up
whoa.
with that total, they had to put the columns in to come up with the numbers.
right.
So, you know, it's like, yeah, you can make it confusing, or you can make it, here's the truth, but you have to look at which companies actually did projections, which timed their PP&E procurement, it timed when they had to replace their helmets, or replace their SCBA's, or whatever. Those companies that spent the time looking at that and know that on year 3, they have to buy 10 cents a
Right.
year, did a good job. If you're just gonna say 2%
15%
or 5%
yeah.
or 10%,
Mhm.
no, you know, that doesn't really show a true budget.
So I just felt
I'd
it
like
was-
to see it in the columns, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
just like-
I like it that way because even if it's not right, you know what I'm saying? At least you're starting to build that and think about that, which is making your planning at year 2 or year 3 much better as you start to build the past and start building the future. That 4 years down, when we first did this the first time, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, you know, there was
Yeah.
so many different formats. But if you start to document your previous year, your upcoming year, and then going out, you're going to get better each year at it because you're going to have the history. And you're going to be thinking about those things that come along, that you go from spending $2,000 to, oh my gosh, now I need $12,000. I need to be thinking about that grant or what I can do to help offset that, or so I have the dollars and the money there to provide for that.
They all started with the same document, so
Yeah.
how it got to,
But is this the document we're going to use, or might we be seeing it like this?
well, personally, I'd like to see it like that because you can close it up and come
Yes.
up with that number that
Right.
you really want to show.
Yes.
But if you have all the data there, then a person who wants to spend the time looking at it, they have all the data.
Yeah.
Okay? It's,
I think it would be good to have that and have it hidden.
That was my position, was to have all 5 columns, 6 columns.
So,
Not hard.
now I'm completely confused. What's the expectation? What is our expectation? First of all, what's the fire association's expectation? You know, when they do this thing,
Like this or.
yeah, do we get this or do we get this? What's their expectation to give us?
They would prefer to do less work, but you can't come up with that 5-year projection unless you do that document.
Okay, so,
Or just, so
okay.
why?
So, my question is then, what's our expectation? This, right?
If that's available, I'd rather see that.
I think that would be better for the supervisors for planning out, because there will be peaks and valleys in that 5 years.
Rest of
So
them.
projecting operational expenses 5 years into the future is nearly impossible. Capital is one thing, operational is entirely something
It's the
different.
capital that I'm concerned about,
So,
operational.
well, I think, yeah, it'd be wonderful if every company had what their operational expense is gonna be for the next 5 years, and then you could roll it up and that'd be really
Well, I
cool
mean,
if they could
I
all do
think-
that. They can't. So, what you get out of it is not going to be accurate, and it's gonna
Yes,
be misleading.
Well,
And then I would ask, what is the purpose of providing the data? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And then you can figure out how you're gonna solve it.
Well, I would think providing the data is, as I was trying to be clear, but maybe I wasn't. I understand that's difficult because you don't have an accountant in each company to do that. But at least you're starting to lay down some groundwork that's gonna help you by the time you get 2 years down the road or something. You should have a better pattern so that you can translate that, because it would constantly be changing. It's just more information to help you better guess what that's going to be, because it is. But there is a pattern in these, and when I go back and look at what they spent last year to what they spent this year, most of them are following pretty much the same pattern they were last year. Exceptions will be when they have to replace equipment, because that was year 3 or year 4 or whenever it had to be
So,
replaced.
2-year operational budgets are reasonable and are pretty, not as so hard to predict. because
Right.
You usually can have that foresight that I've got, turnout here or this or that is coming due, but you go out beyond that and it's just.
Well, 2 years is less work for the companies, I can tell you that.
So I just think it was,
Well,
I still like seeing the breakdown if you're trying to get to 5, because it kind of shows you how you got there, and then you're making the edits and making it more realistic.
Or, page, blows the gasket. This is feeding into the strategic plan, right, which talks about 5 years. So, that's probably why it's on a spreadsheet, because in the plan, and I don't know what the conversation or discussion was when that thing was developed, negotiated, or whatever the right term.
There wasn't much more than we needed to be able to see into the future, to be able to tell the board some projection of when, what's gonna hit the fan.
Yeah.
All right, and so that was, my original thought when we went down that was, like what you said, we'd be able to see the peaks and valleys, because it was under the assumption that the county at some point was going to have to pick up capital expenses and was going to have to pick up paid staff at some point. The question is, based on the reaction we got when we reviewed the strategic plan, is don't worry about the capital expenses, we'll take care of them, right? To your point, do we need to see them anymore? Or do we not necessarily believe that answer? So, because the numbers don't jive with that answer. So those are the those are a different way of asking the same question that Gary just asked. What is it that we need it for? What decision are we trying to make? And if we're not going, if the decision is, for the time being, we're not gonna worry about paid staff, and the time being, we're not gonna worry about having anything more than the $100,000 or whatever it is that goes into capital, or whatever the number is, then we don't need it. Now, as as a planner, are you comfortable with just hoping that we'll get enough warning when it happens?
Depends how big the bank account is.
That's exactly right. So, that's the decision, and that decision has to be made by the board, I think. So I think we're missing which way does the board want to go in terms of its planning. And for us to try and predict that, particularly in an election year, is kind of getting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And they didn't raise the penny that was recommended by this board last year,
Correct.
okay? And the same recommendation should be coming from this board for next year, because they didn't do it last year, with the anticipation that eventually paid staff may be here sooner than they think.
Now, we didn't talk about the social media I took for recommending the tax increase. But anyway.
So I guess bottom line, all I'm saying is,
Let's kick you out of
I
here.
know it's not the easiest thing.
Right.
I wouldn't expect it would be 100%, when we first start off. It certainly wasn't 100%. I think everybody gave a great effort into trying to come up with the budget the first time. But I think it's a proactive way to look at who wants to be told 2 years from now we have to do this, and we haven't had a test run. I mean, we've spent this whole year, every meeting, trying to make this better, and it is getting better. The reports look better, we just talked about that. But it's a practice thing. I think you don't want to go out the door when someone says, okay, you want the 5-year plan. Whoa! I mean, I just think if we were working towards that, even though it's not right, at least we're practicing it and we're being proactive to trying to get something together.
With the
That's just my opinion.
with the association and the chiefs, and then the companies have to realize that from the end of December in 2019, they might have 25, no more than 30 days to put that together, along with a strategic plan, and still submit their bills, so that becomes their final projection of what the 100% operational budget is. We're not talking that they have all this time to get ready for that, because they're gonna want to use the most current year's data, which they won't have until December 31st, 2019. That's the crunch period. So if we make them do 2 years, or 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years, I don't see the degree of difficulty in adding an additional year or two. For some companies, it will be difficult. Period.
So, right now the headings are previous year, so right now that would be 2018, upcoming year.
Actually, would be 2019 on this.
Well,
Upcoming
previous
year would be 2020.
So, okay. So
And
that's
then-
just a projection on what.
It should be
for
current,
1 year.
it should be current year,
Yeah.
next year,
Right.
5 years.
And then, but we need to make sure everybody's using the same percentage of increase for the 5-year projection. Because some people
Well,
are
that's-
using
well,
a 10,
that's
some
no-
are using a
that's-
15,
that's
some are
not
using.
what it is.
That's
20.
part of the argument. Are you doing it just as
If you're doing
some
a
are doing it
straight-
as straight percentage, and some are doing it as a big,
As
long
actual
calculation.
expense.
Actual expenses.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, not.
I mean,
just
if you
inflation.
know,
That's-
if you know you need, in the next 5 years, you know you need 12 sets of gear, you gotta figure those 12 sets in those 5 years someplace. It's not just a percentage of your budget.
Well, I mean,
The different line items go different ways.
Yeah.
Fuel you can do by a percentage, it's
Right.
gonna have inflation or
Exactly.
whatever.
Or if you're, you
Sort
know,
of, kind of, maybe.
if you
Makes
need,
your
if you need
predictable
4 or 6 $1,500 tires, that's gotta project out
Right.
someplace.
I mean, I think, it's a pain in
It is a
All right.
pain in the tail.
the arm, but I'll tell you what, I think it's, in the long run, it will benefit everybody, especially when you start talking about.
So, all of this stuff is a rounding error compared to the staff. So, it doesn't matter. And whatever this cliff is gonna be, that's the important thing. So, can something in this report predict when staff is gonna be needed by the county? Because the rest is rounding.
Well,
And capital is the other cliff. That makes
Yes, the
all of
capital
it.
cliff and the staff cliff, right.
Right.
Those are the 2 cliffs.
So the rest,
So how are we
you know,
gonna
whether
put-
I need 1 turnout gear this year and 3 next
And that's was the intent in the operating agreement. When enough warning for the county about when those cliffs are approaching. And so how are we gonna,
It's not gonna be predicted by a table with multiple columns. It's not.
No, but the capital costs, the capital, if we could see the capital out,
That's,
Well, the companies have said they'll make
But
it.
the equipment is only part of the formula. The question is, how many people do you have in your company, and what are their ages?
no, and I understand that.
Because that's your
And that's a-
You need bodies.
But,
you need seats.
I got it, but if you give me I don't care about the operational cost, truly, I don't care. But I do care about, I wanna see, okay, I think I'm gonna need a new fire truck here, I think I'm gonna need this here, I think I'm gonna need this there. Oh, by the way, I've got 50 people in my company right now, 5 years from now, 2 years from now, I think I'm only gonna have 35. Bingo. That's a red light. 5 years from now, I'm gonna only have 15. Well,
Well, you're no longer a valid company in 50 years.
well, whatever it is, but that to me is the only thing I care about, is kind of that. Look, your operational costs, yep, phone service is gonna go up 2%, okay, I got it. Fuel costs are gonna go up, we're a self-sufficient country right now, so we produce our own, we can do all our own fuel. That's why diesel's higher. But, no, but I mean, I don't care about it, because that's gonna be whatever, I wanna know if you're gonna have to build a new building. You're projecting for a new building or whatever the case may be, so that information to me is valuable.
But I'm not sure you put that in a spreadsheet. I think that maybe that has to be a separate report, a future study for each department, maybe. Some kind of thing you're talking about.
That's why it went in the capital improvement plan, but there was no ever an intended obligation on part of the county to fund it. It's the idea that that's the kind of expenses that the companies are looking at. And they have to, it's like a goal, we had goals when we got married, and if we wanted to have a new house by such and such a date, you either met that goal or you pushed it out. And it's the same with a new car, you either make it or push it out. Trucks will keep running. If not, you buy another
Take 2
used
days
one.
to process it.
Well, I mean, if the county's not concerned
just
about
deleted
that,
a whole bunch of stuff on my computer too.
Okay,
Back to the question of,
Paige made a,
What's your motion, Dave?
what was
he
his
made
motion?
I made a motion to amend or to approve as amended, plus Kim's latest amendment of adding the professional services. I did not address the projection. I don't think personally, I don't think we should at this point. I think that needs to perk a little bit. Leave the form the way it is.
So, I'm sorry, your motion was to basically leave it like it says here.
I would change the first one to
Right,
current.
right, but I mean, 3 columns instead of 7 or whatever it would be.
current, upcoming, and then 5-year projection.
I would clarify, and I don't really care, do you want the total for 5 years, or do you want the number in the 5th year?
Number in the 5th year is what I thought it should be.
Then that's fine.
Is that somehow a note on the fire levy guidance? He's gonna make that somehow, to tell you how to fill out the chart of accounts? Because that's what the rest of this is for, is how to fill out the chart of accounts, so if there's a description of what 5-year projection means, it probably ought to be in this document.
Well, it doesn't go in this one. It'll go in this one, chart of accounts.
We're doing 2 different.
yeah, you just,
Well, this is cross-referenced over because it defines what A, B, C, D, and E are on the chart of
Yeah,
accounts.
but chart accounts is not
just
all.
put a note down here at the bottom, it says fifth year projection is your cost at the 5th year.
Which means you'd have to do all the work anyhow for the
Yes.
5 years and open the spreadsheet up anyhow, so.
Maybe,
What happens? Yes.
I will say maybe.
I just
Some will, some won't.
made a comment about it
Times
earlier,
15%,
but I want to know that I've got a problem with that addition you're adding about the major repairs, excluding any used equipment repairs in the first year. You don't buy a vehicle and intend to fix it, that's ridiculous. And to expect, Because with this,
Do you have the repair costs for the military vehicle included in this bill submission?
it would have been included in the previous bill submission.
It was not. Because this is part of what every person had been leading to, that, you get a thing. I had a couple of repairs on Cert 5, never came into the bill submission process. Those repairs were covered totally out of our pocket, as was the outfitting of the truck.
Great, I appreciate that that may have been the way it was handled. I'm still saying that I have an objection as to having this excluded because you don't buy the vehicle with the intent to fix. And if it does happen, because I'm sorry, but as good as your son may be, I can't say that every repair on every vehicle you would ever need is going to be known at the time of purchase.
Can I make a,
And
no, I don't want to argue your point, I'm gonna give you another way out, all right? We still have an emergency repair account, correct?
It's in contingency now, but same thing.
Yeah, it's in contingency.
Discretionary
So-
to the board of supervisors.
Yeah, but I'm saying is,
14,000.
no, I'm saying within the fire levy account,
Yeah,
45.
there was
Fire
45,000.
services fund balance.
Right, within that fund balance, there's an emergency repairs account, where a given item can be given to the fire levy board for consideration.
for consideration.
Correct, so for example, I think the last one we did was Company One's ambulance engine
I know.
blew up, and we gave it to
I
them.
know,
I'm not,
I'm just saying that is a fundamental issue as far as a fire department trying to operate, given the constraints we have with the current funding issues we have. I see this as an issue that it shouldn't be an acceptable part of a normal budget. Why it has to be an exception or an exemption, or it has to be considered or anything. Again, we're not buying, the whole point, and I realize you guys were talking about buying, new versus used, but my point was that you're actually creating a punitive situation by saying that if you get a used vehicle, you're having to hope like hell nothing goes drastically sideways, or we gotta hope that the county will cover it additionally. And I don't see that as being a reasonable way, when we're talking about trying to create projections, how is that a reasonable way for us to create a projection if what we're doing is we're rolling dice every time we buy a vehicle, when we know, does anybody here have more than 1 or 2 new vehicles in their entire fleet of vehicles? So every vehicle we buy, every time we buy a used one, we're gonna have to hope like hell that nothing goes sideways. And again, this goes back to each company has to cover its budget in a way that works for each
The
company.
recommendation came from the chiefs.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
didn't come from
my,
us, right?
you're, it came from the fire, that's the fire association's policy. So your gripe is with your chief and every other chief.
Recommendation.
Yeah, that was their recommendation, not ours.
And I'm not saying, I'm just.
No,
I wasn't at every other
I
meeting.
got you, I understand.
I wasn't at every other meeting, and so this is just me pointing out an objection I have.
Yeah, no,
to
I
this
understand that,
paper.
but
So I'm not saying, I'm not blaming you guys, I'm just saying,
No,
I have an objection.
Well, just as info, there have been companies who have done oil analysis, there have been companies who have pulled the transmission fluid and did oil analysis on prior to purchase.
Right.
And the rationale is if you can find metal particles in those fluids, then, or acids or whatever, then you might consider not buying. So if you're not gonna take that time and effort, which for the military vehicles, we obviously didn't have that opportunity. It was, here you go.
There's a
what's
freedom.
done.
Well,
But to run a test on it later on and realize there's an issue, would have been detrimental, but as it turned out, they were okay.
I think those 2 tests can be part of the purchase agreement as well.
sure.
Yeah, and in some cases, you're even on the purchase agreement with the Virginia Department of Forestry, you don't make that agreement with the government.
No, that's
Okay,
right.
so you
No,
get,
but if
you
we
get
buy-
what they give you.
If we bought, you're right, exactly, but if we bought a fire truck from New York, part of that purchase agreement was that they wouldn't have it certified and tested.
But you probably wouldn't have done that with a $7,000 utility.
Probably not.
So
I agree.
I
I've
understand
handled
where he's
a lot of
coming from. I mean, but, there's some things you might have to eat, so. Okay. We have already made a motion in a second, and all we have to do is vote.
Who was the second?
I'll say.
Brian.
I did.
Brian, but yeah.
I'm third.
And that's
during the FOI training, it became obvious, or we became aware that organizations that receive over 50%, maybe as high as 66%.
66 is their.
Yeah, but we have court cases, one in the county that is at 51%. All right?
Okay.
All right, so the point is, because of the level of funding, and I've done a chart, and I'll give it in a minute, the association at 100% is clearly a public body, subject to FOIA and the records law, all right? When I take the 2017 audits and add them up, first I did just municipal funding, which was Rappahannock County, Town of Washington, Culpeper, and Warren, all right? You had 3 companies that were real close to the 50% line. When you add in other government funding, 4 for Life, which comes from the state, EMS cost recovery, which I don't know what percentage comes from Medicare.
I don't know if that would count.
That doesn't.
I don't know if it counts or not, but whatever. And grants, whether or not that count, this is why I put this separate. I didn't know if they count or not. You get far more companies that are in the mix, all right? Too bad Mike left. If all those were in, he's at 94% in 2017, all right? Company 1 is at 80%. So my point is simply this. What is the association doing to go get clarification from Alan or whoever about how this is to be applied and what needs to be changed in those processes?
So I did ask Gernhardt the question, and he pointed to previous opinions of the FOIA Council that are not consistent with our local judge, for whatever reason, that they deemed principally funded by to be 2/3.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what he said during the meeting too. So, but the point is, and by the way, this data is not, it was before 100% funding. So some of those companies were only at 40% of what their operational expenses are. So I didn't have the audit more recent. But so the point is not, my point is I recommend that the association get on this and figure out what needs to be done, all right? And what needs to be done quickly, all right? Because I'm not saying I know of anyone, and I don't want to know of anyone, but God, we don't need another FOIA lawsuit.
So you're
All right.
suggesting the association review and educate the companies on the
Get
potential
the exact,
implications.
what does count, find out what the numbers actually are.
Well, some of these things you won't ever know unless it's an attorney general opinion or
Right,
you know,
right.
it's gone through to the Supreme Court. So
Right,
the
right,
rest
so,
is-
but yeah, we're saying the same thing. Get a guideline as to where we are and get, for example, the association meetings put on board docs, you know, and follow, or however they're going to announce.
Yes, right.
All right, and get those things done quickly, all right? That's all I'm saying, because you all can't afford.
Yeah, so technically, the association will need to notice the meetings on their website if they have one.
Mhm.
Do they have one?
They do, yes.
Okay, so they have to say, our meetings are once a month, and they're at this time, and this is where they're gonna be. They have to do that. They have to have a opportunity for a notice list,
Right.
and that's about it.
Well, no,
Records,
you get the
share-
public records issue too,
Well, yeah.
all right? But
They
they
have
need
a
to,
secretary and,
right, so there's just a number of requirements that need to be done. I agree with Gary, they're not necessarily
I've had some of
onerous,
these conversations with.
but they need to be done. And they need to be done quickly.
Yeah, our meetings have always been up on our website.
Which is liability of the association, not of the county.
Right.
And
Well, I'm not saying that, I'm just trying to help out. trying to do. Don't take it any more than that, please. All right?
We as a company, Castleton, have, our website has always had our meetings on it. I'm trying to figure out what else we need to notify on.
If you're basically funded.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming we are. Just make the assumption you are, then you follow all the rules, and you never lose.
Right, that's what that spreadsheet told me.
Yes.
That it's probably better just to do it, because it's not that big a deal, and then not have to worry about it.
Right.
All right, and because when in the future, when things change, and you do more capital funding and more staff, just do it. You know, it just seems simpler,
I
right?
mean, we had all of our meetings and minutes and monthly reports all are digitized and readily accessible,
Right.
so.
So, I mean, that's the point. Let me ask a very blunt question. Harold wasn't there for FOIA training. Did you, Art, or whatever, tell Harold that this is an issue?
I actually had a small discussion with him recommending that he go to the training or go online and take the training.
Or watch the video?
Right, watch the video. I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, that's a good one. I don't know how far that went, but I will raise it with him again.
Thank you, sir. And that was that.
Good. So now we're at the,
Motion to adjourn.
there you go. All in favor?